What's up, San Diego? Happy Monday to everybody out there as we get you ready for the Braden Surprenant Show. We'll be live and local each and every day from 10 to 2. Excited to be here, excited to be part of this great station from an on-air perspective. A big thank you to Adam Klug and Michael Valenzuela for giving me the opportunity. But, you know, for a San Diego born and raised kid, this is a really cool experience for me to be able to be a part of this and be able to share my sports passions with all of you. Growing up here in town, listening to all the sports radio talk, growing up, you know, throughout high school and you know, throughout my life, you know, listening to some of the greatest and being able to work with some of those people as well have been such a great opportunity, and it's been a blessing to be able to get to that point. So today, a very big day, obviously, for me and my family and all my friends that are in town here in San Diego to be doing this show for you. So underneath the circumstances, obviously, it's not the greatest, you know, not necessarily the way that I wanted to be able to have my own show. But, you know, it happens to be this way. And, you know, last week was a tough week for all of us here at the station, you know, for everybody involved and everybody that's been here. It was a rough week. And so you got to try to flip it and be excited to get ready to deliver another 4 hours of show for you guys out there. And this is why we do it. You know, for all of you guys that use us to get you through your day, use us to get you out of, you know, tough situations, or if you want to just put everything to the side. That's why we're here. So I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm looking forward to putting together a great show for you guys each and every day. We got a lot planned for today's show, obviously, with a lot to talk about right now in the month of March. I mean, you got UCSD and San Diego State basketball doing really well. They finished their season strong. Big win for San Diego FC over the weekend as they were able to knock off Real Salt Lake. And then again, the Padres. And we learned a lot from the Padres this weekend. We continue to learn a lot from the Padres. And I got a lot of different angles that we can discuss when it comes to the Padres in spring training and how they've gone about what they've already done, but also some of the position battles that are really starting to heat up right now in Peoria. You start looking at the roster. We're gonna take a deeper dive into this later on in the show. I mean, you basically got a situation where you got 3 catchers battling for a spot, 5 infielders battling for 2, and 2 outfielders battling for 1. That's how I see it right now. And you can weigh the pros and cons of a lot of these, but you know, there's a lot of different ways to go about making this roster and solidifying this roster. We might have some time to talk about the rotation as well, and the way that kind of played out over the weekend. I mean, obviously, Pivetta looked really good in his second outing. Matt Waldron did not look very good yesterday on a Sunday. So and they're trying to put together that starting rotation for the Padres, and they still have a lot of players battling for that final spot, right? Kyle Hart and Randy Vasquez and Matt Waldron and Johnny Brito, Stephen Kolek, you know, all of these players that are trying to get that final spot. And I think it might be a rotating piece. But as of right now, all of those players have options. And that is a different factor when it comes to solidifying this team, as we got another 2 weeks left of spring training before we get you into, obviously, the regular season. How this show is going to work, I mean, obviously, it's going to be me over here, and Adam's going to be helping me out. And a big thanks to Adam for being able to do that. So there's not a lot of program directors that are going to, you know, sacrifice their time to be able to make this show the best show that they can make it for the betterment of the station. So I really appreciate him being able to help out. But we're going to get involved with the community. I'm very much San Diego oriented. I love taking phone calls. It's not going to be a phone call only show, but I do like mixing in your guys' opinions. I do want to mention you guys can follow me on social media, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. I have a YouTube page that we are broadcasting on as well. And you can follow me on TikTok. A lot of different things involving San Diego sports on those, and some lifestyle stuff too. So follow me at B_SURP, at BSURP. Again, I'm on all social media platforms by the same handle. You can subscribe to my YouTube page on that as well. We're going to be posting content from the show, some preview stuff for the show, post stuff after the show on my social media page. So be inclined with the show and start giving me a follow on social media at B_SURP. I can't be remiss to not say and talk about the people that I've been fortunate enough to work with here at this station, and the people that have really gotten me to this point. I've learned so much from everybody I've worked with when it comes to working with Coach, when it comes to working with Craig and Annie. Couldn't be nicer people and better people to work with at the station. I learned so much from all of those, as well as everybody else that's here. So I try to incorporate a lot of what I've learned into my show. So we'll have some fun stuff that we have done in the past, from Annie and Elston, and we'll have some fun stuff from Coach's show, and just a big appreciation for all those people that I've been fortunate enough to work with, and I hope I can emulate all of what they brought to the table, that I can incorporate that helps me get to the broadcaster I want to be. So I do want to thank everybody that has gotten me to this point along the way. It's unfortunately for our business, and it's something that we've all agreed to sign up for. It's at any moment. There's a lot of fun in this business. There is a lot of fun. There is a lot of perks, if you will, about going to games, and you get to talk to a lot of great people, and you get to go to a lot of great places, and I get to meet a lot of great fans out there, and a lot of you. That's been so fun to be able to meet when we do live remotes, and I see you guys in the chat and everything like that. Those are the great things of this business and this industry. And some of the downsides are obviously just the way that there's a lot of things that you don't have control over that impacts your life. I mean, that's what happens. And it happens to all of us here. It will happen to all of us here at some point in time working in this business. And, I've been fortunate enough to know a lot of people that have been through this multiple times, and it's not fun. And we got to try to keep moving, but that's just kind of part of the game. It's just part of what we have to do each and every day. And it's such a blessing every single day to talk to you guys that as part of this show. I'm going to go one show at a time and try to give you my best every single day to entertain you, because that's what we're here for. We're going to be talking a lot of Padres on this show. Obviously, we're going to be talking about San Diego State athletics. We'll talk about the local colleges. We will talk San Diego FC, and we'll talk soccer, obviously being a major league sport in town. We'll talk about what's going on in San Diego. I do like to incorporate a lot of life stuff too. There's more than just sports going on in this town. So all of that is going to be incorporated in the show. We got some good features planned, and some good segments that we have in the works that we're really kind of putting together, that we really want to be able to highlight for you guys each and every day. Hopefully some appointment listening for you guys, where you want to just tune into this segment every single day throughout the weeks. But I'm excited. I can't wait to be able to talk to you guys. I'd love to take your phone calls as well. But I do want to dive into, everything that's going on with sports. And I think the biggest thing right now is, as we get into championship week, is focusing on UCSD and San Diego State as they kind of cruise to the finish line and get ready for what is going to be a very important week for them in Vegas. I looked at it, and we're going to talk about this later on in the show. But right now, I mean, as good as UCSD has played, and they've played really well, as good as they've played, you start breaking down their resume, and I know they're in that bubble group and they need some things to kind of go their way. It doesn't really stack up against a lot of the schools out there in college basketball, at least from the numbers and the metric standpoint. So I really think, and here's the big reason why the Big West tournament's so great, is UCSD and UC Irvine as the 1 and 2 already get to be in the semifinals. So they don't have to worry about playing until Friday, which means UCSD is 2 wins away from winning the Big West and punching their ticket. As of right now, if you're a UCSD fan, I would really, I think you got to lock in for the next 2 games, because that's going to get you in the tournament. And I don't think just getting to the Big West championship is going to get you into the NCAA tournament. I think you're going to be disappointed on Selection Sunday. So as great as the winning streak was, and I think UCSD has done such a great job during conference play, they're going to have to win 2 to get in. I think the Big West is probably going to be a 1-bid league. I think it's unfortunate that you have to deal with some teams like North Carolina, and you have to deal with some teams, like an Oklahoma or an Arkansas, who are getting the benefit of losing to a lot of good teams. And we're going to dive into this later on in the 12 o'clock hour. Little resumes that just get you informed of whether or not UCSD and San Diego State can make the NCAA tournament without winning it. And right now, I think the Tritons got to win their tournament in order to get in. As for San Diego State, they're in a tough spot too. The thing that really helps them is that their non-conference schedule is legit, and they do have top-tier wins. The difference between them and a North Carolina is even though North Carolina played a better schedule than San Diego State has actually won games against teams that are good as opposed to North Carolina. So for the Aztecs, maybe one win, maybe two if you want to feel really comfortable on Selection Sunday, but not necessarily a win the tournament and you're in situation. I think maybe one or two wins, one for sure is going to help them out. And that's kind of where everything sits with San Diego State. Later on this hour, I think Mike Schultz said something that is really going to solidify how he values the catching position and who's going to make the team besides Elias Diaz. And I think Elias Diaz is making the team regardless. And I think there's 7 locks for this roster already. I think there's about 2 or 3 guys that should be on the roster. And then I think everybody else is battling for a spot. And right now, the only catcher I have really written down in ink, which makes sense because he got a contract, is Elias Diaz. But what Mike Schultz said about Elias Diaz, I think is telling you who's going to make the team as the backup catcher for the San Diego Padres. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But when we come back, I was at the Aztec game. They played well against Nevada. There is one thing that I think is concerning about the future of Aztec basketball. We're going to talk about that when we come back. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, middays from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 10:18 on a Monday morning, Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, every day from 10 to 2. Be sure to follow us on social media at B_SURP. You can follow us on TikTok. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, X. Whether you like to call it X or Twitter, you can follow us there. Also follow the fan at 97 to the fan SD. Got tons of videos coming out from spring training. As always, we're going to talk more spring training baseball in just a little bit. I think Mike Shildt said something about Elias Diaz that impacts who's making the team at catcher behind him. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. But I do want to talk some Aztec basketball, some UCSD basketball. We'll start with UCSD to the point of they're on an absolute heater right now. They beat Davis on Saturday, 68-57. They win the conference outright of the regular season. They get the number 1 seed in the Big West Conference. I think what Eric Olin and his staff have done in this day and age of college basketball and being able to take a program that was D2 and in this day and age of college basketball where NIL is all over the place and it's difficult to try to get some of the best players to come to smaller schools, especially a school like UCSD that is just transitioning to be D1, and to get guys to really buy in and play for each other and play together as a unit, as well as the Tritons have had all year, is a very impressive task, especially for a program that is in the shadow of another program in town that has gone to a Final Four. It's really remarkable what Eric Olin and the Tritons have done this season. The guy had 18 points again on Saturday against Davis. They took care of business. And the thing with UCSD, you've seen it in their last couple of weeks of playing. They have really just taken teams to the woodshed to improve their status to try to get in the NCAA tournament without having to win their conference tournament. Conference tournament set up perfectly for the Tritons. Big West did a good job in scheduling it so the top 2 teams have the shortest path to the final. So for UCSD, they're in a good spot. They win 2 games. They're in the NCAA tournament. That game against Irvine is going to be tough. Assuming Irvine gets through their side of the bracket, which they're in the same position. They play Friday. They have to win 1 game. They're in the championship. That Irvine UCSD game 3 for the conference is that's gonna feed families. That's a great matchup from the get-go. So I think if the Big West wants a 2-bid league, UCSD losing that game might give them the best chance in order to do that, just based on where they're at and how they've played. But again, we've talked about it. I mentioned it before. Their resume outside of just doing well in the Big West is not very good. Their best win of the year is against UC Irvine. That's their best win. Correction, it's Utah State. Beating Utah State on the road is their best win. Their second best win is Irvine, and everybody else is outside the top 100 of the RPI for all their wins. Notable losses, San Diego State, but overall their non-conference schedule was a 261 out of 300 teams. It's win the tournament or go home. So that's the tough part of the situation for the Tritons. It's a doable thing for the Tritons, but these are two very important games for UCSD Friday and Saturday coming up to get in the NCAA tournament. They look good again. I mean, they've cruised in every game that they've played. They haven't really missed 3-pointers. They've been all over the place. They've been fantastic, and they continue to get better. Now, San Diego State. I thought from a game perspective, and we'll start with on the court. If San Diego State plays like they did on Saturday night, they're winning the Mountain West tournament. There's nobody that's going to beat them. If they played the way they played on Saturday night, nobody's going to beat them. And after they got out to a huge lead, some of the shooting percentages went down a little bit. I mean, Nevada, they're not very good. But the way that San Diego State plays defense, and we know how well they play defense, if they could just shoot a little bit, they're a team that not only can run the table in the Mountain West tournament, but they're a team that could make some noise in the NCAA tournament. And they were able to do this without Guath. We don't even know what the status of Mugun Guath is yet for this week. I don't know how many extra days you can bide with him not playing when you need to win this game against Boise State. But they were able to do this without Guath. Heidi had a great game. He was 5 for 5 from the field. Had 14 points. He was all over the place on rebounds. 6 total rebounds. Miles Bird and Nick Boyd have been on fire. Bird 3 for 6 from the field. Nick Boyd was 7 for 10 and 3 for 6 from the three-point line. Had great guard play by the Aztecs, and everything we know about guard play in the NCAA tournament, good guard play wins you games in the NCAA tournament. Aztecs have done a really good job with not necessarily one of the best rosters in the country, and that's just metric-wise. They have overachieved in terms of where their roster is, according to stats and analytics. But they cruised to a victory over Nevada. And again, on court, you got good production off the bench. Wayne McKinney III came off, had eight points. Farrell Compton had 13 points off the bench. DeMarshe Johnson Jr. had probably one of the sickest lobs I've ever seen. Pass was a little bit behind him, and he was able to come all the way back and slam it down for the Aztecs. But the thing that I'm the most concerned about with the Aztec program, and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I went to the game, and I sat with my friend Sam, who was high up. I mean, he's the mayor of Viejas Arena. I can tell you that right now. He knows everybody that's there. Former student, alumni. I look at the arena, and the energy's good, but it's all coming from the alumni and the fans and the non-students. It's all coming from the non-students. I looked at the student section at one point in the game. The first 5 rows, excellent. They're doing a great job. They've always been the best, the first 5 rows. But after that, I mean, the student section, I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're not allowed to do as much anymore. I don't know if it's just this day and age of kids on their phones. But at some point in the game, early on in the contest, the first 4 rows doing their thing, and then everybody else is just sitting down on their phone. The student section at Viejas Arena is 3 total sections. I remember going to games when I was in college, not at San Diego State. I'd come visit. Those 3 sections would be standing the entire game. I remember sitting in the student section going, I'm never going to be able to sit, which is fine. That's what you sign up for. But I could not believe the lack of, excitement, lack of energy. But the student section, I was disappointed. I tried to hype them up a little bit before, hey, look, Nevada game's coming up. Last game, sending the seniors off, bring the energy. It was just lacking. I don't know. Is San Diego State still a spot that is a difficult place to win at? I mean, they lost a handful of games this year at home. I think everybody else in the arena is doing their part. A student section seemed off the last couple of years. Maybe Viejas Arena isn't a very tough place to play anymore. I don't know. I think the students need to step it up a little bit. I'll tell you right now, when they're in Vegas this week, Aztecs fans are going to take over that arena like they always do. There's nothing cooler than being in an Aztec postseason game for basketball and hear everybody's chants, "We will be victorious." Expected to see that again this week at UNLV. But I just thought, student section needs to step it up a little bit. What is the one thing Mike Schultz said about Elias Diaz that is going to determine who makes the team at catcher? Mike Schultz talked about it over the weekend. We will discuss that next, as well as other position battles for the San Diego Padres. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local every day from 10 to 2, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3, The Fan. 10:34 on a Monday morning. Braden Surprenant here on the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Talking some Padres baseball for you. We just mentioned Aztecs and UCSD obviously getting ready for conference tournaments. And we got some Padres baseball that we have to discuss over the weekend as we talk about what happened over the weekend for the San Diego Padres. Some things that were said, things that happened on the field. We're kind of recap the Padres weekend right here, and then we'll get into a little bit of some conversation, 11 o'clock hour, about where everything stands with the lineup and where everything stands with this roster in particular. This Padres roster, 2 weeks out, is starting to solidify a little bit with some spots. And you start talking about what Mike Shildt has said. He might be hinting at some things at the catching position. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. But as I look at it, you got 13 position players. You got 7 locks already, that big contract guys, guys like Arise is there. He's going to make the team. And Bogarts and Cronenworth, Machado, Merrill, Tatis, and Elias Diaz. But then you got, some fringe guys too. You got some two players that might be on the team. And then you have a lot of players that are battling for spots. And you got to think about options left. You got to think about if the player is a non-roster invite, are you going to take somebody off the 40-man to put him on said roster? What do you do with guys like Eggy Rosario, who has been raking during the spring, but also at the same time out of options? We're going to talk about all of that at 11 o'clock. But this weekend, Padres on Friday got rained out. Arizona usually gets the rain the next day from us here in San Diego and in Southern California, for at least in the springtime. So they tried to play a little bit. Hart was out there pitching, and then he threw a couple pitches where the ball flies out of his hand. And then you had some circus plays in the outfield with just slipping and falling. They decided to bang the game. Saturday, a 7-2 win over Cleveland. In Saturday's game, Darvish made his first Cactus League start of 2025. 2 2/3 inning, gave up 2 earned runs, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. That was bullpen was mostly the Padres' regular season bullpen. Like the bullpen, these are the guys that are going to be coming in when you need them to pitch. Adam pitched, Suarez pitched, Morejon pitched, Matsui pitched, Peralta pitched, Alec Jacob pitched. Bullpen combined for 6 innings, no runs, only allowed 4 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts. Adam was perfect. Morejon was perfect. Matsui only gave up a knock. Wandy Peralta, same thing. But they did really well. The bullpen did. And overall, the Padres win 7-2 over Cleveland. Take that for what it's worth, right? Take that for what it's worth. They're getting their job done. They're getting their work in. The results don't really matter. It's just a little different. Like, it's hard to evaluate spring training from the sense of, like, from a fan perspective, because baseball is such an individual sport. It's individuals that make up a team effort, but it's such an individual sport. And what the organization has certain players working on that we don't know about, they could be doing really well. They could be doing a lot better than we thought. It's more than just what their stat line is and how they've done over the last, 5 or 6, whatever games. Manny Machado's not off to a great start. But is he ever? I have actually more on that in just a little bit. But Yu Darvish made his Cactus League debut. Mike Shildt said he looked really good. Here's what Mike Shildt had to say about Yu Darvish's outing. Again, 2 2/3, 2 earned runs on 4 hits.
All right, Mike, what did you think of the way you looked today?
I thought Darvish was really, really, really good. Everything's coming out really easy. Fastball had a lot of life to it. Cutter was nasty. He always spins the ball well. A couple of bleeders, hit batter, damage control to keep it at the 2 with nobody out, bases loaded. But I thought he was fantastic.
Yu was great. He gives up a couple of runs. Can't look at his overall stat line. His ERA is whatever, through the roof. Give up the 2 runs in 2 2/3. But Mike Shildt thinks he looks fantastic. I thought he looked pretty good too. He's one of those players that you should never have to worry about. And there's a handful on this Padres team. Manny's one of them, but Darvish is especially one of those players you never have to worry about. Even though he's up there in age, right? He's up there in age. He's at, I have it down on my sheet. Darvish is 38 years old, and he will turn 39 this year. What he does on a daily basis to keep his body in shape and to keep himself in pitching form, I think he could pitch to the end of his contract. You're assuming it's going to go down. I mean, he's probably not going to be his lights out self that he was at the beginning part of his career. And he's no longer the number one for the Padres, right? It's Cease and King near the top. But at his age and what he can do in being really reliable asset for the Padres, I mean, he is a great number 3 for any team contending in Major League Baseball. A great number 3. And he showed that again over the weekend in his only outing so far at spring training in 2025. Mike Shildt said so. Bullpen looked really good. Takeaway from Saturday is the pitching staff looked great. Nick Pivetta pitched a little bit on Sunday, and in his second appearance, he looked really good. Here's what Nick Pivetta had to say about his outing over the weekend at spring training. I love the YouTube stuff. It's so great. Trying to put it together. But Nick Pivetta, again, he pitched really well. I like Nick Pivetta. I think Nick Pivetta as a 4 is going to be great. Again, the big knock on him is giving up home runs. But I think pitching at a pitcher-friendly ballpark like Petco Park is going to be big for him. Here's what Nick Pivetta said after his second outing of spring training for the Padres.
Everything feels good. I got to 45 pitches today, so just everything's on track. Body feels good. A little bit longer first inning, so I was happy to work around that. Obviously, really good defensive plays, and then just kind of cruise from there.
How would you, on the whole, just describe the spring in terms of getting to know this group of guys, the teammates, the staff, everything?
It's a very exciting experience for me. I love to get to know new guys, get to know new coaches, new organization. I feel like you learn a lot how different people do different things, and you're able to kind of take from those types of things and apply it to your game. And, it's just nice to meet new people and, learn new things.
You were really crisp second and third inning. Anything lock in particular?
Just felt better. Just overall, just felt better. Yeah, I think I just was probably trying to a little too hard in the first inning, and then kind of eased things off in the second and third, and was able to throw more strikes.
You're almost too crisp. You could have maybe got more pitches.
Yep. It's always good when you can throw more pitches. Yeah, 100%.
You've faced Elias Diaz in the past, but what's it been like getting to know him behind the plate?
Yeah, I like to think of myself not too complicated to call. I like to keep it simple. I like to have a really good open communication and allow them to do what they want to do. So, I think the relationships are really good that I'm building. Obviously, it's going to take more time, more experiences that we get into. And I think just with overtime and the craftsman and the hard work that he puts in, he'll get to know me as we continue to move. He already did a really good job today. So, I think there's just a ton of positives.
Nick Pivetta after his outing over the weekend, his second outing, and obviously he feels comfortable, and he's getting the groove in, and he's building a rapport with Elias Diaz, and I like this pickup for the Padres. I thought when AJ Preller made all these moves, he's so creative on the way that he structured everything to keep Michael King in San Diego on, not having to worry about too much money in the arbitration situation. Bringing in Nick Pivetta and having this incentive contract backloaded and the way that he structured Nick Pivetta's contract. Top 4 pitchers in this Padres rotation are really good. And they can compete with a lot of different teams out there. Now, the number 5 spot is going to be very interesting. Matt Waldron did not do very well. I mean, he labored in his second start. His first one didn't go his way either. He gave up he gave up a little league home run, which is not really him giving it up. That was kind of not really having any defense behind him. But he failed. He failed to command his knuckleball throughout parts of 3 innings. Struggled in relief of Pivetta, who started the game for the Padres. Allowed 6 runs on 4 hits, 4 walks over 1 2/3, and he was lifted from both the 4th and the 6th innings. And it didn't even finish the innings. Mike Shildt went on to say it's not a decision that needs to be made now. We've still got some time, and he's got some more opportunity Matty's had a pretty good camp and had a good year last year. Today just wasn't a good day for him. Waldron is competing with Kyle Hart, Stephen Kolek, Randy Vasquez, and was Johnny Brito. But the latest tweet that we got a couple of minutes ago from AJ Cassavell was in the scrum today talking with Mike Schilt. Johnny Brito is not going to be part of that number 5 rotation conversation. They want Johnny Brito to be more of a long relief guy in the bullpen. So the final spot in the rotation is going to come down to Hart. It's going to come down to Kolek. It's going to come down to Vasquez. And it's going to come down to Matt Waldron. And the good thing about all of that is they all have options. So it's not like one of those guys has to be up because you'll lose him if you have to cut him, or if you have to DFA him, or if you have to try to sneak him through waivers to try to keep him in the organization. Don't have to worry about that with these guys. With the options, it might be a revolving door. The thing with Matt Waldron is he is all knuckleball, and that's about it. I mean, his biggest thing is the knuckleball. And if it's working, he's on. He's pitched to very high levels for the San Diego Padres. But when his knuckleball is not on, he doesn't have good outings, like over the weekend. So very hit and miss. That's not somebody that you can bring in out of the bullpen. So Waldron's not one of those long relief candidates. He's either in the starting rotation in San Diego or he's logging innings in El Paso. I don't think Vasquez is ready yet. I think Kolek's looked really good. Hart has seen some bright spots out of Hart. But if I had to pick right now, and we'll talk more about the rotation later, I would think Kolek is in the number 1 spot right now for that number 5 position of the rotation. And if that's the case, picking him up as a Rule 5 pick and leaving him on the team the entire season was great for the San Diego Padres. I mean, if you could be your number 5 starter all the time for the season, I don't think it's going to be the case. What a great Rule 5 pickup. We talked about Johnny Brito not being part of this conversation. Mike Schilt met with the media today to talk about Johnny Brito.
Johnny Brito came to camp. You planning to stretch him out. Like, where is he at right now? Like, what do you see him competing for at this point?
Yeah, we're trying to, thought process is looking to stretch Johnny out. I think where we're at now is, more of that role he was in last year at the bullpen, maybe get a few extra innings to go. But no, we're not looking down the starter path at the moment. We're going to go more in the bullpen to, shorter to mid relief.
That's where they want him to be. Shorter to middle relief. I think that's okay. I mean, when you made that trade with the Yankees, you wanted arms, and you need a lot of arms, and they're not all going to be starters. But that doesn't mean he can't be a starter in the future. Maybe next year or the year after. I mean, a long relief guy is where you can start. So that keeps him on the team. You want to keep as many of these pitchers on the team as possible to help that depth out. We talked about Elias Diaz. Obviously, AJ Cassavell, he had some reports on Diaz as he preps for a longer tour with the Padres. This was on Padres.com earlier or last night. And Elias Diaz is one of those players that has been really known for his hitting more than his catching. And what Mike Schilt said about a catcher, he has cited that a catcher is a defense-first position. On that front, this is from the A.J. Cassavell story, Diaz made significant strides last season with his framing. He has been renowned for his ability to work with pitchers. Quote, clearly he's been in the league for a while, so he has that feel, Mike Schilt said. And we always feel like the catcher and the manager need to share brains and think through situations. There's a lot that I trust the catcher on in the course of a game, so I've really enjoyed getting that communication going with him. On top of that, it mentions that Elias Diaz, even though he is known for being a better hitter, the Padres don't necessarily need him to be that former all-star self. The team has got a lot of all-stars on it. He doesn't have to be that type of hitter that was the 2023 All-Star Game MVP. Padres don't need him to do that. If he could be in the 9th spot in the order and command a pitching staff, that's all they really need him to do. I mean, you had a great performance out of Kyle Higashioka last year. Supposed to be a backup catcher, ended up being your starting catcher. So if Elias Diaz can just be kind of half himself there on offense and really work on his pitch framing, I think he's going to be in a really good spot. What does that mean for the other catching position, as in the backup catcher? Because I think Elias Diaz is going to be your starting catcher on opening day. I don't even think that's that crazy of a take. I almost guarantee it. When Alex Miniak announces the San Diego Padres 26-man roster with everybody out there, he's not going to mention Diaz when his number comes up. He's going to mention Diaz when he's batting ninth for the Padres in catching against the Atlanta Braves on March 27th. Who is he going to say as the backup? The fact that the Padres and Mike Shildt see that position as defense first, a defense first position, I think that really puts Luis Camposano behind the 8 ball. And he hasn't even really hit that well. But he's known for his hitting. He's got an option left. You can send him down to AAA. He could start in AAA. Learn how to catch. Be better defensively, which has always been kind of his problem. He'd always been a really good hitter, and the hitting got him to the major league level, but he needs to be a better defensive catcher if he wants to be up with the Padres, especially if your manager is saying, we view that as a defensive first position. Luis Camposano's got an option left. Brett Sullivan, according to Fangraphs roster resource, is out of options. I thought he had one, but we're going to go with that. He's out of options. So if Sullivan's out of options, you can't just send him back. And he's on the 40-man roster. You can't send him down to AAA. What you could do is you could DFA Brett Sullivan at the end of the spring training, open up a 40-man roster spot, and then add Martin Maldonado as the backup catcher because he is a more defensive style catcher than he is a hitter. But in doing so, you'd have to leave. Brett Sullivan's got to be snuck through waivers if he wants to come back to the San Diego Padres, which I don't know if he would at 31 years old. I mean, he might be valuable enough to some other teams to be able to get picked up by somebody else. So your options are really, if you want to, if you keep Camposano, you got to cut Sullivan and Maldonado. I don't think they're doing that. I think Camposano's not going to be on this, not going to be on the opening day roster. I bet you he starts in AAA. So now it comes down to youth versus veteran. And that is the topic of conversation for a lot of different position battles on this team. And there are 3 of them. Just talking about position players, you have a battle for the catcher spot, right? We talked about it with Martin Maldonado and Brett Sullivan. I think those are the 2 players that you're going with on this team to back up Elias Diaz. Sullivan's out of options. Maldonado needs to be added to the 40-man roster. Younger player in Sullivan at 31. Old vet, been there, done that a little bit. Hitting has not been very good. Martin Maldonado at age 38. He's got to be 39 this year. Youth versus vet. Infielders. Connor Joe, Eggy Rosario, Mike Brassell, Yuli Gurriel, Gavin Sheets. Brassell, Gurriel, and Sheets are all players that are not on the 40-man roster. That being said, Brassell and Sheets have options left. They could theoretically option them down to AAA El Paso. Connor Joe's got 2 options left. Eggy Rosario's out. 5 infielders for 2 spots. 3 catchers for 1 spot, and it's Brandon Lockridge versus Tirso Ornelas. Position battles are heating up for the San Diego Padres. We're going to give you the full breakdown. I'm going to tell you who's making this opening day roster when we come back. Hour number 2, Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, middays from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 11 a.m., hour number 2 of the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local every day from 10 to 2. I am Braden Surprenant, and if you want to, be sure to dial up and give us a call, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Also, be sure to follow us on social media. You can follow me at B_SURP on all social media platforms. Follow me on Twitter/X. Follow me on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. I think that's it. So, and my YouTube page at B_SURP. You can subscribe, give us a like. Be sure to give us a like on today's show. Subscribe to 97.3 The Fan so you can be with us every single day as we talk Padres baseball and we talk San Diego FC and Aztecs and everything else that's going on underneath the sun here in San Diego, California. We talked about a little bit in the last segment about Mike Schilt's comments and the way he views things on Elias Diaz, potentially teasing what the catching situation is going to be like in terms of the backup of who makes this team. We know Diaz is on this team. I mean, I think that's an absolute lock. The contract they gave him, the way he's been playing, for where he's at in terms of veteran presence and still kind of youth-wise, he's going to be on the team. No doubt about it. Now, who's going to be the backup? And we'll dive a little bit more into this as we go on and like to hear from you, Padres fans, of where you think some of these position battles should go as we lay this out. But before we get to that point, I do want to talk about people being afraid of the offense, nervous about the offense. When is it time? When is it time to start worrying about the offense in spring training? First of all, as I mentioned before, there's only so much you can get out of this. Guys are working on different things. Guys are trying to get ready for the season. They're trying to get in shape. They're not playing entire games yet. You're seeing a bunch of different pitchers. It's not, the scouting reports and everything that gets put into this is not necessarily all out like it normally is for a regular game. So you can't necessarily, view spring training like this huge, huge deal. The guys are just trying to get back into shape. If you look at just Manny Machado, he's not a player that I don't think anybody worries about, but I do want to mention this now. I'm going to mention it now. So in April and May, I could just point back to this moment right now in time for when people start freaking out about Manny Machado and thinking he's just getting too old now and he can't do it. Manny Machado in spring training right now is 2 for 14. Not a very big sample size, only 14 at-bats. He's got a double. He's got a home run. He's hitting 143 with a 143 on base and a 429 slug. Who cares? Who cares? I'm not worried about Manny. Let's take that a little bit further. It's going to kind of tease a segment that we're going to do later on in the show. Not today, but as the weeks progress and the days progress. Are you good? Anybody questioning the offense right now? Or Manny Machado? I've seen fewer of the Manny Machado questioning than I have the Padres offense questioning. But are you good? Manny Machado in March and April in a Padres uniform, with the exception of 2022 when he raked out of the gate, he's put up some very mediocre numbers. Last season, he hit 250 in the March-April split. Now, again, he was banged up. He was only the DH, but still, he had 250 with 4 home runs. There is a guarantee, actually, when you start looking at this data about Manny Machado, that he might hit 4 home runs in the first month. That's almost a guarantee. But anyway, so last year, 250 with a 301 batting average on balls in play. And he had a 98 SOPS plus. Now, what an SOPS plus is the comparison of Manny Machado to the rest of Major League Baseball in that month. That would be the particular stat or split. It's a split OPS plus. There's also something called a TOPS plus, which also goes back to where Manny compares to the rest of Manny's stats in that particular area. That is also very low. But last year, 98 SOPS plus, which means if you looked at the average Major League Baseball player in the month of April, 100 was the average. He was slightly below average. In 2023, he hit 236 with a 279 batting average on balls in play. His OPS plus, again, comparing himself to the rest of Major League Baseball just for that month, was 84. Again, the average player is 100, so he's less. Still hit 4 home runs, though. You're almost guaranteed to see 4 home runs for Manny Machado in the month of April. Magically. 2022, he actually raked. I mean, that was kind of a fluke, right? 386 average, 438 batting average on balls in play, had a 214 SOPS plus. He was at 214, 114 spots higher than the average player in the month of April in 2022. 2021 hit 240, 2019 hit 236. Again, 3 home runs, 4 home runs. He's going to hit 4 home runs. He's going to hit for an average, medium average, a 250 or less average. And I say that because he always gets off to slow starts. But then you look at his July, August numbers. 2024's August numbers. He hit 302 with 7 home runs, 284 batting average on balls in play, 155 OPS plus. 2023 hit 309 in July and August, 11 home runs, 191 OPS plus. 2022, 342 average, 6 home runs, 382 batting average on balls in play, 183 SOPS plus. 2021, 8 pumps, 371 average, 357 batting average on balls in play. And 2019, same thing, 6 home runs, a triple, 278 and a 279 batting average on balls in play with a 118 SOPS plus. I threw a lot of stats at you right there, but what it's telling you is Manny always gets off to a slow start and then really takes off in July and August and when the Padres need him to do it the most. So again, he's off to a 2-14 start. Really doesn't matter. He's going to probably not get off to the greatest of starts in the first month of the year either. That's almost guaranteed, with the exception of 2022. The only thing that's kind of guaranteed when it comes to Manny in the first month of the year is he's going to hit 4 home runs. I thought that was the most remarkable stat that I saw last night when I was looking this up. In the first month of the season for the Padres, it says April/March because sometimes, you know when the season starts. 4 home runs, 4 home runs, 4 home runs, 3 home runs, 4 home runs, all in a Padres uniform in the first month of the year. It's almost guaranteed he's going to hit 4 home runs. It's also almost a guarantee that the guy's going to hit over 300 in the months of July and August in the second half of the season. If you look at some other stats with just baseball players in spring training, Kyle Tucker started his spring training 0 for 20 before he hit a bomb yesterday. He had 0 hits and 18 plate appearances during spring training so far in 2025. He was 0 for 20 going into yesterday before he hit a home run. I don't think anybody thinks Kyle Tucker is going to have a rough season. So you mix in some of those players together in a lineup, and you go, man, our offense doesn't look very good. You start looking at some of the stats that the Padres have put together in spring training. Is it time to worry about the offense? No, it's not time to worry about the offense. It's spring training. It's April 10th. It's March 10th. It's March 10th. Or I messed that up. Yeah, sure. Jackson Merrill's hitting well. Jackson Merrill's a contact hitter. The guy's always been a good hitter. He's hitting 316. Eggy Rosario's had a great spring. He's hitting 200. In fact, there's only 3 players that even qualify for an average right now, and that's Tirso Ornelas, Oscar Gonzalez, and Eggy Rosario. That's it. Nobody else has enough at-bats to even qualify for any type of statistics. Gonzalez is 10 for 30, and Tirso is 10 for 27. Nobody's making these assumptions or making major roster decisions on just the stats alone. They're looking at how they put things together. And so when we talk about this position player battles that the Padres have, and we're going to talk about this on the next couple of Mondays as spring training finishes up and we get ready for March 27th. We got about 2.5 weeks left of spring training games in spring training. We talked about the catching situation. Diaz is on the team. He's one of the locks. I think out of the 13 position players that are going to make the opening day roster, 7 are already written in permanent marker. I think the catcher is Elias Diaz. I think your infielders are Rise, Bogarts, Cronenworth, Machado. I think outfielders, Merrill and Tatis. I think all 7 of those players are locks for opening day. I think there's a separate category of most likely on the team, and I think that's Tyler Wade and Jason Hayward. And then that really leaves who's left. So you've already filled 9 spots, and you got 4 more you got to fill. You got 3 catchers battling for 1, Campisano, Sullivan, Maldonado. You have 2 outfielders battling for 1 spot, in my opinion, Lockridge and Ornelas, and both of them have options. And you have 5 infielders battling for 2 spots. 3 of those guys aren't on the 40-man roster. Brasel, Gurriel, Sheets. Now, you could mix it up a little bit and think maybe they take an extra outfielder over an infielder. I mean, Connor Joe is listed as an infielder for this. But Connor Joe, Eggy Rosario, Mike Brasel, Yuli Gurriel, Gavin Sheets. Brasel and Sheets both have options left. Gurriel does not. Those 3 players are not on the 40-man roster, which means even if you do have them start in the minor leagues, if you pull them up for any reason, you have to get somebody off the 40-man roster in order for them to play. Connor Joe has options left. Eggy Rosario does not. That's kind of how it lays out. I'm telling you who's making the team. I'm going to give you the roster. I almost think I got it down. I'm going to give you the opening day roster for the San Diego Padres when we come back. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, middays from 10 to 2, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Hey, it's Ben Hick.
11:18 on a Monday morning. Braden Surprenant on the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local for you, middays from 10 to 2, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We're talking some Padres baseball. If you want to weigh in, you can weigh in on the chat on YouTube. You can also tweet at me at B_SURP, tweet at the station, 97.3 The Fan. Be sure to follow us wherever you find social media at B_SURP. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. We'll be posting more content over the next couple of weeks or so as we start ramping up this show here on the middays on 97.3 The Fan. And be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. All of these shows are in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, all that fun stuff. If you want to weigh in on the Padres roster, I'm going to tell you who's making this team. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I'm going to tell you who's making this team, at least right now. And this is going to change. It might change in the next couple of weeks, but as of right now, if I had to put together a roster, here's who's making the team from a position player standpoint. And I got all the numbers. I got, projected numbers from Fangraphs, and I have the options and who's got options and who doesn't. But as I mentioned before, you have 13 spots on this team for position player. 7 of them are already taken by players that you can just write in pen because you know they're going to be there every single day. The question is for these particular players is where they're going to play in the field and where they're going to hit. And that's basically it. And some of those are very easy to put together as well. Elias Diaz is going to be on the team as a catcher. He's most likely going to be the starting catcher for the San Diego Padres. Luis Arraez is making this team, obviously. Xander Bogaerts, Jake Cronenworth, Manny Machado, Jackson Merrill, Fernando Tatis Jr. I think with the money that they gave Jason Hayward and the money they gave Tyler Wade, I think those 2 players are in the probably on the team spot. I wouldn't necessarily say they're locks, but because some things can happen. But the way Tyler Wade is as a player in the clubhouse and how everybody loves him on the team, and they gave him the $900,000 and with a club option for $1 million next year, he's most likely on the team. Jason Hayward, I think, is the same way. I don't think they bring in Jason Hayward just to cut him before the season starts. So those 2 particular players, I don't necessarily think they're locks, but I think they're probably on the team. So that has 9 spots taken. Now you're looking for 4 more. And I think we've talked about it with the catching position. I think there's 3 for 1. And I honestly think there's probably 2 for 1. I don't think Luis Campusano is going to make this team unless an injury happens. He has an option left. Mike Shildt has already talked about defensive catchers, and he views the catching position as defense first, offense secondary. And Luis Campusano is an offensive player first. But that being said, he's hitting 167 against spring training. Doesn't really matter. But he hasn't really done that particularly well. And the Padres continue to wait for this guy to really come into his own. But he's 2 for 12 in spring, a 167 average, 231 on base, 398 OPS. I mean, it's not like he's raking right now. If Campusano was raking, and he still can. I mean, he's only had a handful of at-bats. He's had 12 at-bats. If he goes out there and starts to rake and he can hit his way on this team, maybe. But as of right now, I don't think he's making this team, which leaves you 2 spots or 2 positions, 2 players battling for 1 spot. Brett Sullivan and Martin Maldonado. Brett Sullivan's on the 40-man roster. He is out of options. Martin Maldonado is not on the 40-man roster. So when talking about defensive catchers, do you want the youth or do you want a veteran? Brett Sullivan's not necessarily a spring chicken. He's 31 years old. Projected OPS of 642 this year. Again, defensive first, offense second. That's how Mike Shildt views the position. So do you go with Brett Sullivan, who you know what you got out of him because he's been with the organization the last couple of years, or do you go with Martin Maldonado, who hit under 200 for the last couple of years and is 38 years old, about to turn 39? if you decide to go with Martin Maldonado, you can put him into a spot on the 40-man because you got to take Sullivan. You can take Sullivan off. He's out of options anyway, so you have to get rid of him in order for him to go back down to AAA. But then again, if you sneak him through waivers, you put him in AAA. If you want to bring him back up, you got to re-add him to the 40-man. It's a problem. So based on the 40-man roster and the fact that Maldonado is 38, I honestly think they'd probably go with Brett Sullivan. I'd go with Brett Sullivan. He's out of options. He's a good backup catcher. He could be in that spot until Campusano maybe gets up to speed in AAA and have him back up Elias Diaz. So I think your catchers come opening day, if tomorrow was opening day, I think it would be Brett Sullivan, and I think it's Elias Diaz. Go to the infielders. We talked about Arise making the team, Bogart's making the team, Cronenworth making the team, Machado. Tyler Wade probably on the team. That leaves two other players that are on the 40-man roster in Connor Joe and Eggy Rosario, and three players that are not on the 40-man roster, and Mike Brossow, Yuli Gurriel, and Gavin Sheets. Mike Brossow and Gavin Sheets have options left. They could theoretically go down to AAA. Now, that being said, I don't know if they can get out of their contract if they have a deal in there, if they don't make it to the major leagues by a certain particular time that they can opt out of said contract. But they have options. The one that doesn't is Yuli Gurriel. I think there's no reason Yuli Gurriel should be on this team. I know he worked out with Manny. I know there's no reason for it. He's 40 years old. To be the DH? I mean, Edgar Rosario is 25 and he's out of options. And he's been hitting the ball. He's got pop. And he can hit left-handed pitching. And he does a really good job hitting left-handed pitching. I know he's hitting 200 right now, but as we've talked about, it's kind of an obsolete stat. He's got a 273 on base, a 467 slug. He's got an OPS of 740. Youth versus veteran. Topic of conversation. I'm taking the youth. Which is interesting because AJ Preller has always taken the vet. He has had a lot of vets. And I think you do need some veterans as bench pieces. But I think you could get that out of a guy like Eggy Rosario, and I think you could get that out of a guy like Connor Joe. Now, the thing that hurts Connor Joe is the numbers game of having options left. But if I'm picking two of the five, it's Connor Joe and Eggy Rosario. And I think Connor Joe and Eggy Rosario make the team. Which leads to the final spot. And I think the final spot on the team is an interesting conversation. Brandon Lockridge and Tirso Ornelas. And I think it's such a deeper conversation because I think it's very close. You know, Connor Joe is listed as an infielder. He could theoretically be a fourth outfielder. They could throw him in left field. And so now you're looking at a position of, are we using this spot to be a pinch hitter? Or are we using this spot to be a pinch runner? Are we using this spot to be a DH? Or are we using this for a defensive replacement? I think both guys provide two totally different things and two totally different aspects to their game. And Tirso's doing a great job. He's hitting 370 right now in the spring. He's 10 for 27. 630 slug, a 1099 OPS. But I think it's deeper than that. Brandon Lockridge, Tirso Ornelas. Who makes the team? I'm going to tell you who I think should make the team, and I'm going to tell you who I think will make the team when we come back. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Braden Surprenant Show rolls on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 11:33 on a gorgeous Monday here in San Diego. Enjoy it while you can, because it's supposed to rain and snow this week in San Diego County. It's not going to snow in Poway because it's not East County, it's North County. But maybe in Alpine or Julian or something like that. Have anybody see the snow this weekend from Thursday's rain? You can see it. The best part where I could see snow where I live in North County is up Pomerado Road, where Pomerado Road comes to the top of the hill before it dumps down into Scripps Priory Parkway. You could see all the mountains blanketed with snow, and that's probably going to be the case next week. Atmospheric river coming into play this week. Thank God I have softball on Mondays. I have it on Wednesdays too. Wednesdays is going to get canceled for sure. But Monday, definitely tonight, you're going to be able to play. Like 6 o'clock game got canceled. I guess the other team forfeited. Playing at 7 at the Sportsplex and then at 9 with the my brother's team. So it should be fun to get some softball in while it's day. And daylight savings. Anybody get smashed by daylight savings on Sunday morning? I actually am doing all right. It's good to have the sun back out at like 6 o'clock. Went to church last night at 5 o'clock. Got out. It was 6. It wasn't dark outside. It was great. Get the little tease of the summer and the spring here in San Diego. And now you're going to get a bunch of rain, which we need the rain, so it's fine. The chat will always be, this will be the contestant of the show. As somebody that has grown up in the Scripps Poway area, we know it's North County. But with East County roots that I have with my family, you know, I still listen to Sam when he says East County born and raised, even though Poway is North County. I won't bore you with that every day. Chat can just have their stuff with that. I've been getting a lot of messages and stuff about the show, and I appreciate everybody that's reached out, everybody that's followed me on social media. If you want to weigh into the show, you can on social media at @B_SURP. You'll leave a voice message on the Odyssey app. Be sure to like and follow us on the Odyssey app as well. We are streaming audio-wise there. We are on your radio. We are also on YouTube at @B_SURP. You can follow. You can subscribe to my YouTube page as well as the fans. If you're new to the fan on YouTube, go check it out, because it's fun. You can get into the conversation. We see your chats on YouTube a lot faster than some of the other things. And again, if you want to weigh in, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I saw some of you call in earlier. I didn't put you on, couldn't get you on hold, but we'll gladly take your phone calls. We're going to talk about Tirso Ornelas and Brandon Lockridge and kind of putting this final part of the Padres opening day roster together. Again, still 2 weeks out, and I think this is going to change for next week. Somebody in the chat did mention, and this is why I didn't have it on there, about Jose Iglesias. I don't know why he's nowhere on their roster. I was trying to find it. If you look at the pod, and maybe it's just the computer, maybe they just haven't put him on it there because they signed him late. He's not on the active roster on their website. He's not on their depth chart on their website. He's not on their 40-man roster, which we knew he wasn't going to be on the 40-man roster. And he's not on the non-roster invitee list. He's nowhere to be found. The only place that you find him on the roster is on the transaction page where it says Jose Iglesias assigned to the San Diego Padres. And I know he's on the Padres because he was wearing number 7 in a game over the weekend. But that's why he wasn't part of the list. Now, that being said, Connor Joe, Eggy Rosario, Jose Iglesias, Mike Brossow, Yuli Gurriel, Gavin Sheets. You know, Connor Joe might be on the outside looking in, Or maybe it is Lockridge. Maybe Connor Joe is that fourth outfielder with the group that they have out there instead of being an infielder. I think the versatility of Connor Joe helps out a little bit more than Brandon Lockridge or Tirso Ornelas. But we're going to talk about that in just a second. What just went down in the NFL? Because we have had some NFL free agency. We're going to get to Lockridge and Tirso Ornelas before the top of the hour. You got Sam Darnold signing a contract with the Seattle Seahawks today. You have had a lot of moves in the NFL. Devontae Adams now a member of the Los Angeles Rams. That happened over the weekend. Chris Godwin is re-signed with the Buccaneers. DK Metcalf is now a Steeler. We've seen some rumors that the Steelers might be adding another veteran quarterback. Aaron Rodgers going to Pittsburgh. Could you imagine the locker room in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers, George Pickens, and DK Metcalf? Over the weekend, again, Geno Smith got traded to the Raiders. Seahawks have now signed Sam Darnold to a $110 million contract. I understand what the Seahawks are doing. Geno wanted a new contract. Going to be very expensive. I don't necessarily know if the Seahawks can win by giving Geno Smith that amount of money, so they elect to trade him away for some draft picks, as he's now a member of the Raiders, and they go a little bit cheaper with Sam Darnold. The only thing I'm concerned about for Seattle when it comes to Sam Darnold is it the Kevin O'Connell effect in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell, La Costa Canyon, Maverick, San Diego State, Aztec, great offensive mind in the National Football League. One of the best football minds out there right now. That guy has had success with every quarterback he has worked with, especially as a head coach. Kirk Cousins was great in Minnesota in his last year with O'Connell as their head coach. And I don't want to poke the bear over here in the seat, but then Atlanta signed him, and they gave him a lot of money. Atlanta messed that up multiple ways anyway by drafting, Penix as well. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking on that. Pick one or the other. They didn't have to do that. They could have saved money, got a Darnold deal like Seattle just did, and then gone with their young player. But Cousins, coming off the Achilles, he had a tough year. Sam Darnold, you started to see at the end of the season for Minnesota in the playoffs, he just wasn't that guy. He was good enough to fill in and win you some games, but he just wasn't that guy to take it to the next level. So I understand what Seattle's doing. I just don't think that's the guy they're looking for. Maybe they're looking in the draft. I mean, maybe he's just a placeholder right now. Maybe they're looking in the draft in the next couple of years. I like the move in terms of overall, money-wise, right? The other one I like, too, here's a funny one to me. We talked about this off air, and we're going to get to Tirso Ornelas and Brandon Lockridge debate that's now affected, obviously, with Jose Iglesias being part of the team as well, about who's making the opening roster. But the one to me that's hilarious, and it could go back to Are You Good? Is the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns and their decision-making is always hilarious to me. I don't get it. And Are You Good, Cleveland Browns, and Are You Good, Myles Garrett? I think Myles Garrett has been the focal point of the Browns since he got drafted. I mean, he is the franchise player for them. He is the face of the franchise for the Cleveland Browns. And he's a great defensive lineman. Great defensive lineman. But he goes out during the offseason, he goes, I would like to play somewhere that's going to be a winner. I want to win a Super Bowl. It's all about winning. Which is that's a fine play. It's a fine play. And you know what Cleveland's going to do in order to keep said player is they're going to offer him more money. But for Cleveland, he is a luxury that they cannot afford. They can't afford Myles Garrett. They don't have enough around him in order to bring them to the Super Bowl. They don't. Their quarterback situation's in flux. They did a little bit better with the offense with bringing in some weapons in here of that, but they don't have anything around Myles Garrett. And you know what doesn't help them? Giving a defensive lineman $40 million freaking dollars. That doesn't help them. They can't build around that. You can't build around Myles Garrett when you give them $40 million. They would have been better off trading Myles Garrett to a team that can't afford him to be that added piece, using the draft picks because they would have got a haul and redid their entire roster. I don't know why they were doing that. I don't get it. Are you good? Cleveland Browns, are you good? Myles Garrett, are you good? DK Metcalf to the Steelers. I think that's an interesting move. Now, what are they going to do with that? I don't know. The rumors of Aaron Rodgers potentially going there would be outstanding. In fact, that's already on ESPN.com. Pittsburgh Steelers might be in play for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, George Pickens. What a locker room that would be. Mike Tomlin's going to go insane if that's the case. I know Justin Fields was interested potentially going to the Jets. I think the Jets were interested there. I don't know if that has gone through yet or not. I like Justin Fields. I think he's got an opportunity to be successful that the Bears did not give him. But if you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973 is our phone number. We're going to talk a little bit more about this Padres breakdown here. Tirso Ornelas and Brandon Lockridge. And I'd love to know what the fans think on this situation, because it depends on how you want to put together your roster. I think in terms of where the roster is and where they have assets, I think having Brandon Lockridge a part of the team is probably a better call for the Padres than Tirso Ornelas. And I think Tirso Ornelas is well on his way to making his Padres debut. They had a great piece on him. Jeff Sanders, what a great article on Tirso Ornelas. The player from TJ who could potentially make his major league debut in a Padres uniform, a place that he's got a lot of friends and family here. And I think he is definitely a local favorite right now to try to make the team. I think Brandon Lockridge helps you out in a couple of different more ways than Tirso Ornelas does, just based on the way the roster is already constructed. Connor Joe and Jason Hayward. I mean, Tirso is turning himself into a power hitter, and he's made some adjustments. And I like the way that he has put together these adjustments. And this is all in that article by Jeff Sanders. Numbers aside, he's made some mechanical adjustments. Ornelas had a 63% ground ball rate during his first stint in AAA El Paso. He then lowered it to a 49.7% rate in 2023, which even went down a little bit further last year to a 47.7% ground ball rate. And it's even down to 40.9% heading into Sunday's start as the designated hitter in Scottsdale yesterday. From a physical standpoint, this is what Tirso said about his approach. From a physical standpoint, it's lowering my hands a little bit more, bringing my hands a little bit closer to the body and using my legs. But then also from a mental side, it's having the confidence in my skills and my abilities and the fact that I'm a good player. He's doing that in spring training. Leading all Padres this spring with 16 total bags, a home run, 4 doubles, 375 average, a 667 slug for a team best 1131 OPS through 11 games. 352 career on base percentage in the minors. I mean, the guy's got a good eye for the zone. Always have had an above average grasp of the strike zone. Unlocking the power as he's done this spring is crucial if he's going to leave a lasting impression this spring. Although the Padres want to make sure that an emphasis on raising that ground ball rate doesn't, or on lowering that ground ball rate, doesn't adversely affect him at pitcher friendly Petco Park where fly balls go to die. Mike Schilt likes his swing. Said he drove the ball down the left field line the other day. He's driven the ball in the left center field gap. He's gotten base hits all over the ballpark, pulled a homer. I think that's where he's at with his swing and where he wants it to be. He's got options. And I think Tirso Ornelas will make his Padres debut in 2025. I really do. I just don't think that he makes this roster out of the gate. Because where everything is of who's making this roster, and we went through it, right? Diaz and maybe Sullivan catching, Arise, Bogarts, Cronenworth, Machado, Wade, Jason Hayward, Jackson Merrill, Fernando Tatis Jr., Eggy Rosario, Connor Joe, maybe Jose Iglesias. I think Brandon Lockridge and his speed helps this team more than Tirso Ornelas and his power, especially when you see a lot of these numbers in AAA, which is very hitter-friendly. He's working on this new swing. He's put it together the last couple of years. I think you let him develop that more in the PCL. I think you let him continue to hit high. I think you let him just continue doing what he does, and then you can bring him up later. He's got options left. He's got 2 of them. I think he's a guy that you can bring up on an injury perspective. I think he's a guy that you can bring up to be one of those guys. I would rather have Tirso at age 25 get every day at bats than sit on the bench. I think Brandon Lockridge brings a lot in terms of defensive alignment. I mean, you could bring him in late defensively and move the outfield around a little bit where you have a lot more speed with Lockridge and Merrill and Tatis. But then also you can have Wade and you have options with pinch runners. I like having Lockridge run a little bit more than Wade. I mean, Wade's going to be on the team, but the speed that Lockridge has is great. So, and I know Tirso's doing a good job. You're a little worried about that fly ball situation at Petco Park. You're going from a PCL that is very offensive friendly to a National League West that's not necessarily as offensively friendly, especially with the humidors now in Arizona and in Colorado. But I like Lockridge over Tirso right now. And honestly, if that's not the matchup, maybe it's Jose Iglesias. You keep Connor Joe because Lockridge and Ornelas both have options. And then Connor Joe is that guy that you can use very versatile as an infielder and as an outfielder. Again, Iglesias isn't even on the roster. I mean, I don't even know. You can't even find him on the website, which is surprising to me because he played for them. That might just be a technical issue. But to me, when you look at it and the way that the team lays out, I know you got Tirso and Connor Joe as local guys. I think you have to try to not use that emotion when making these decisions at those particular positions. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get out to Jocelyn in Oceanside. Jocelyn, what's going on?
Hi, Braden.
What's up?
Congratulations on the show.
I appreciate that.
First
caller on the show. Yeah.
Yes. Always go down in history. But no, I'm seriously super, super happy that we get to hear a familiar voice midday. And I will continue teasing you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yes, yeah. Well, when you encourage a lot more of your minions in there to do the same, so
yeah.
We greatly appreciate that from the North County resident that Jocelyn is up there in Oceanside.
Foul on Braden.
Yes,
Foul
get the fouls back. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate
Right,
I appreciate
congrats.
the phone call, Jocelyn. Thank you very much. We'll get more phone calls if we have time in the 12 o'clock hour. I think a lot of fans are torn on the Tirso Ornelas, Brandon Lockridge situation, or even with Jose Iglesias. I think the way that he's only 25 years old, I think you let him be able to develop a little bit more in the minor leagues. Let's get out to one more phone call. Mitch in New Jersey. Mitch, what's going on? It's a beautiful day out here in SoCal. What's the weather like in New Jersey?
It's nice. I guess it'll be the weather we have now is like 60 degrees. I guess that'd be your winter. I thought you were going to say that was fake. I thought you were going to say that was fake news.
No.
When you open up the show, talk about snow in San Diego. I mean,
Snows here every once in a while.
You had so many bad things happen in Southern California. I guess the snow will be the least of your worries.
That is true.
Or the state's worries.
What do you got for me, Mitch?
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I want you anytime. Congratulations. And I wanted to mention about the NFL. Baseball's here. Well, the NFL is always 12 months a year. I didn't like the Raiders going after Geno. I mean, if you want these ex-Jets, Sam Darnold was out there. Even Aaron Rodgers. I wanted Sam Darnold, and I think Sanders would have fallen to them at 6. So I didn't like this Geno.
I agree with you, Mitch, and I appreciate the phone call. Thank you very much. Honestly, yeah, the Raiders could have had a better time signing Darnold and then looking for somebody in the draft. I think if the Raiders signed Aaron Rodgers, they would have been in trouble. I think you'd been making a deal. The term making a deal with the devil, I'm not calling Aaron Rodgers the devil, but just in the general, it'd just be you don't know what you're signing up for when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. I think the Jets learned that the hard way.
Well, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, and you alluded to where he might be signing later. One of the Steelers' former quarterbacks just signed with Aaron Rodgers' former team, Justin Fields, in a 2-year agreement with the Jets. So the Jets are off the board, and Aaron Rodgers might end up in Pittsburgh, where Justin Fields was.
I could see that potentially happening. That was the big thing, was the Steelers were still interested in bringing Justin Fields back, but he was bowling a choice at the Jets.
We've also got news from Ken Rosenthal. Dodgers in agreement with Dave Roberts.
Oh, wow.
Big contract.
Dave Roberts gets an extension. We'll see what that's about when we come back. We'll also break down some more of this roster decision, plus San Diego FC with a huge win on the road. We'll talk about that in the next hour. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, middays from 10 to 2, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Starting the lunch hour, Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, middays from 10 to 2. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We are so blessed in town to have professional sports in order for us to have this talk show. And so I love talking about the Padres. We're going to talk about San Diego FC coming up in the next segment. They had a huge win against Real Salt Lake, 3-1 on Saturday. And getting the fact that they have gotten 3 points on the road twice now is great. And there was a lot of things that Mikey Varas said in his post-game press conference that I want to bring up to talk about the edge that this team has and why it's going to be an exciting team to watch. We'll talk about that at 12:15. And it's great that we have another major league team in town. But with today in the National Football League, I mean, it is going crazy right now in free agency with all the moves going around and everybody's making, signs and trades and everything like that. I mean, we've seen like 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks already go to different spots. Justin Fields is going to be a Jet. Sam Darnold is going to be a Seahawk. Geno Smith is a Raider. Aaron Rodgers is out there. Russell Wilson is out there. Rodgers has emerged as a Steelers option, according to sources on ESPN.com. I mean, these are just quarterbacks. There was stuff over the weekend. Devontae Adams is a Ram now. Devontae Adams in L.A. with Puka Nacua. Matt Stafford coming back. Are the Rams the favorite now in the NFC West to repeat as division champions? What are the Niners doing? What's John Lynch and the Niners doing? I mean, they've been the class of that division up until last year where they had some injuries not go their way. You got Justin Fields throwing to Garrett Wilson again in New York. How about that? Does that take the Jets out of potentially drafting a quarterback in this year's draft? I mean, there's so much news going down in the NFL, so many different angles that you can go with. It makes you wish you had a team still. But some crazy moves going on in the NFL world. That's not the only crazy move going on. I wouldn't say it's crazy, but we're going to break. Ken Rosenthal has tweeted out, sources confirmed to me and Fabian Ardaya, the Dodgers are in agreement with Dave Roberts on a 4-year deal for more than $8 million a season, a record average annual value for a manager. John Heyman had it first. I don't know. I mean, I was talking with Adam behind the scenes. The Dave Roberts is an interesting character in terms of how San Diego views him, right? Like, first of all, I'm never going to say bad things about it. Good for Dave. Okay, good for Dave. But I have such a hit and miss reaction to this because I was severely disappointed in Dave Roberts and the way that the Los Angeles Dodgers handled last playoffs. I thought it was very unprofessional. I thought it was very classless of the Dodgers organization. I was disappointed in an organization that considers themselves one of the best and classiest of Major League Baseball. I thought their antics were ridiculous. And I think this relationship, it's so weird. Like, Dave's a San Diego guy. He's from here. He ran to Rancho Buena Vista High School. He's a quarterback at RBV. He's got that famous stolen base for the Red Sox. Not that has anything to do with San Diego. He played for the Padres. He was a bench coach of the Padres. And in a previous ownership, they passed him up and let him walk instead of giving him an opportunity to interview for the Padres managerial job. So I can see why he might have a little bit of the red ass for the Padres. But for me, it's such an interesting deal. I've been fortunate enough to talk to Dave a couple of times. I've seen him at that holiday happy hour that a lot of people in the media put on every year in North County, and he goes. And when you talk to him there, he's a cool guy. Like, he's down to earth. He's cool. Like, he doesn't mind talking to me. He's like a totally different person. And then it's the way he acted in the play. I was like, come on, man. So it's an interesting topic. I mean, the Dodgers, for years, I thought every year that they didn't win the World Series, it was how many more years are going to go with Dave? I mean, the fact that they've won a World Series now, outside of 2020, I guess they're giving them a contract extension. I mean, if they don't win the World Series this year, isn't that a disappointment for Dave Roberts? I mean, to me, managers in general in baseball, it's not like they were 10, 15 years ago with a lot of X's and O's. It's mostly just managing personalities. And obviously the players like Dave. Dave listens to what the front office has to do. He's going to be there until he doesn't want to manage anymore. Or unless they have multiple losing seasons in a row, which I can't imagine them ever having. And if they do, that'd be hilarious. But I can't see that being the case. So Dave Roberts gets a contract that he probably deserves. 4-year, $8 million a year. Good for him. He's going to be the manager there for a long time. But again, it's just I have like a mixed feeling about Dave Roberts. As is the chat. I mean, the chat is just, aside from maybe the guy that went to Rancho Buena Vista High School in the chat that goes, oh, wow, legend, Dave Roberts. RBV legend, Dave Roberts. Like there's a lot of people in there that are against it. Yeah, maybe he can use some of it to donate back to RBV. That'd be great. I know he's very much involved in the community. His kids grew up here and lived here and stuff like that. And I mean, he manages for the Dodgers now. And I think Padres fans have a right to maybe not like Dave Roberts, especially with the way the last year kind of played out. I think my guy Matt Devine in the chat, shout out Matt Devine. He is a nice guy, and I honestly think there probably would have been a situation where if the Padres did beat the Dodgers in that series, he might have been out of a job. I don't think that's that hot of a take, honestly. I don't think that's that hot of a take. If the Dodgers lost to the Padres in that first round, Dave wouldn't even have a job right now. And he beats the best team in baseball in the Padres. Apparently, that's just what we've been told since the playoffs have ended. Well, the real World Series is in the first round of the playoffs, second round of the playoffs, whatever. Second round of the playoffs. That was where the real World Series was. Well, if that was the case, it got him a contract extension. I wonder what it would be like in an alternate universe where the Padres won that series. I really don't want to go down that path. I'm sure that's fun to put in like an AI graphic. Show for me Gaslamp of San Diego with the Padres winning that series compared to the Dodgers and the Padres going to win a World Series. What kind of alternate reality that would have been?
Does this fall into the category of rendering?
Probably. I would say so.
Had enough renderings.
Add to the renderings. It wouldn't be for a stadium. It would be for what would the utopia look like of San Diego? Dave probably is out of a job in LA if that was the case. I mean, who knows what the Padres would look like? But it's an interesting thought to have. It's right, 100%. Would have been a sick reality. Absolutely. Would have been sweet. But it's not, so we got to move on. I will say this about the Padres season. Now, there's some other Ken Rosenthal news that we're going to talk about here, and we'll get into San Diego FC in the next segment. But I think it's with the way the Dodgers have built themselves up so much this offseason, have spent so much money, and they brought in all these players. I mean, you watch, and I watched the here's such a downer on this. I had a family event over the weekend. So my grandmother likes to host Thanksgiving. She didn't get to host this year. We ended up hosting it. And so a lot of our cousins, they weren't able to come and everything like that. But she had to have all these people over. So we had like 25 people on the Surprenant side at my grandmother's house in Lakeside. And, we got some cousins that are from the Victorville area. And they're Dodger fans. So I was over there at their house or at my grandmother's house, whatever, for this deal. And we had, oh my God, this is disgusting. Are there any French Canadians out there? So my last name's it's French Canadian. There's this dish called tutke or tutia. It's a meat pie. It's disgusting. I don't know why. I don't. It's like minced meat. It looks like a shepherd's pie kind of, but it's French Canadians version of that. It's like ground meat, and it's just filled with cloves. It's like a lot of cloves. If you don't like cloves, you hate this. I'm not a big cloves fan. I don't like it. And it's served with pickled beets and pickles. No, thank you. But they all love it, so they come over for that. I walk in, and they got the Dodger game on. And they're playing the White Sox. And I didn't want to sit through that, but I was like, okay. So I watched the Dodger game. If you want to say it's Dodger loving, fine. I watched the Dodger game on Sunday. Sunday? Yeah. No. Saturday. Saturday before I went to the Aztec game. I'm watching the Dodgers play against the White Sox, which is cool because the White Sox had Nick Nastrini pitching, the San Diego kid from Cathedral. Grew up in Scripps, went to Cathedral, pitched at UCLA, former Dodger. And he went against their lineup, and it was one of their better lineups. I'm watching guys come to bat going, Eddie Rosario's their number 9 guy in the order. And everybody they pull out of the bullpen is just like, are you for real? So this team is like a super team now in LA. And I think a lot of people in town use that as their mentality or use that right now as like a season's cook before it starts. I view it as it's going to taste even better when the Padres knock them off. It's going to be great. All the pressure's on that team up there. It's all great. Everything's great for them right now. And every time that all these teams have these super teams and everything is great, it usually doesn't end well for those teams. Contract extension for Dave Roberts. Shohei Ohtani coming back. He might pitch. They went and got Blake Snell. They went and got this guy. They went and got this guy. I mean, they went through almost everything. But we'll see. I think there's a lot of players on that team that aren't even going to make the team up there. I do want to get to your phone calls, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Mikey Varas, the head coach of San Diego FC, made a comment post-game that I think should really get you excited for San Diego FC and why they might be a lot better than we think. We're going to talk about that when we come back and get to your phone calls. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local middays from 10 to 2, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 12:19 Monday afternoon now. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fans, the Braden Surprenant Show. Thanks again for all of you guys for tuning in today as we have day #1 on the Braden Surprenant Show. Thanks again for all the kind words today. Really appreciate it. Talking a lot of Padres baseball here in the first couple of hours. Talk some Aztec hoops and UCSD hoops. We're going to get to your phone calls just a little bit, but I do want to talk some San Diego FC with a big win that they had on Saturday. They knocked off Real Salt Lake in a 3-1 victory in which they were able to get Anders Dreyer the go-ahead goal in the 90th minute at +1 of extra time that was set up by Willie Camado. Just an unbelievable goal for San Diego. And then Marcus Ingvarsson was able to add one to take a 3-1 lead, all in extra time in this contest. A game that very difficult first plane trip for San Diego FC. There's so many factors that are in there in terms of team, of how this new club is going to do things. And I think some of the players mentioned that in their media availability after. One of them being Anders Dreyer was talking about it was our first plane trip, going to high altitude, and we were kind of setting the stage of like how this goes about. How do we travel for games? How do we go about traveling on road games out of town and flying to different places as opposed to just busing up to Los Angeles? So all of that is incorporated. You forget about those things because you're so used to seeing them with a lot of professional teams. San Diego's front line did a good job in the second half. Their back line, they had some issues with some of the players leaking through. I mean, Piol was able to get that goal early for Real Salt Lake, but that's part of the style of play that San Diego FC plays. They have they bring the back line forward a lot to try to keep the aggressiveness and keep on the attack. And you live by that, you die by that. And there was a lot of leakage back there that caused some chaos, that Dos Santos was able to make some great saves for San Diego FC to keep them in the game. I mean, some of those, if he doesn't make, I mean, we're talking about a completely different conversation of the game on Saturday night. But Dos Santos had a great game. You know, you're trying to mix up with that back line for San Diego FC. Mikey Varas salutes a lot of players that they had, new players, young players that were making their debut that came in late on that back line to get some experience. That's a huge part of the game for all sports. It's not just getting practice time. It's not just, playing, maybe in a different league or anything like that. You need game reps in the league that you're in, especially with the players that you're going to be playing with. And this team has not been together for very long. I mean, they were adding pieces almost every single day during camp. And the fact that they're off to a 2-0-1 start is remarkable. But there's something that Mikey Varas said in his media availability that I love. And here's the thing, it's a market where we have, soccer it's a new thing for a lot of people here in town. And there's a lot of people that love watching soccer. And the fact that the MLS here is great. But for me, that's like kind of a casual learning how to really dive into soccer. Mikey Varas said some things that I would say as a football coach, as an American football coach, I would say the same thing. Here's Mikey Varas, head coach of San Diego FC, after Saturday night's match where they knocked off Real Salt Lake 3-1.
We are obviously excited. You get road points at the first division level. That's not easy. The boys came here. We wanted to go after the game. We showed that that's our attitude. It actually wasn't our best game, if we're honest with ourselves, which we are. But you never don't celebrate away win, because it's very hard to come here and win.
So they scored early. Did they have any message for the guys, or what do they do to kind of regroup?
Keep going. We talk a lot about impacting the flow of a game, and sometimes the flow of the game is going to go against you. You got to have composure in those moments, stick to our principles, stick to our style of play, keep positive, keep believing, and then just chip away and grind away at it. At the end of the day, our sporting director had the quote of the night. I don't think anybody had Franco Negri scoring a header from 11 yards out on their bingo card tonight. But people step up, and at the end of the day, you have to celebrate that.
And what about the goals in extra time? What did you see there?
Yeah, what we loved about it is like 1-1. I think a lot of teams could say, okay, we're satisfied with that, but we've talked about wanting to go after the game, continue to stay with initiative. And the boys showed that they wanted the 2-1, but they also showed they wanted the 3-1. And that's something that we're trying to develop within the group, and they're buying in. So that's very good.
That right there. That is the part of that of the media availability where he hits it out of the park. They wanted to go after it. A lot of teams, he said it, a lot of soccer teams be satisfied, 1-1 draw, got a point on the road. It's okay, 1 point on the road. He's like, nah, forget that. We want the win, and we're going to go after it. And that aggressive style of play and pushing it and keeping your back line forward and just being on the attack the whole time. Now, that's going to give up some goals. But that kind of edge is the edge you love to see. That's exciting soccer. That's going to get the casuals to watch. I love those comments from Mikey Varas. Yeah, we wanted to go win. We wanted 2-1. And then after going up 2-1, right? A game's in hand at this point. They got in the first minute of extra time, past the 90th minute, out of 7, they took a 2-1 lead on the road, and instead of just trying to kick it around because, hey, look, we got 3 points. Let's just hang on to this and get conservative. Bang. They're going to score again. They're the new kid on the block. And they came out and just whacked, just punched 2 to 3 people in the face as soon as they showed up. They ain't here to mess around, San Diego FC. I love that attitude. Mikey Varas said that on these airwaves a month ago. They're going to play an exciting, go after it style of soccer. You saw it on Saturday. And he mentioned that wasn't their best game by far. I mean, they had a lot of issues early with the defense. And Dos Santos bailed them out of a lot of bad situations with his goalkeeping. And you're going to get some of those games. I mean, they're coming up. They're going to have to deal with some of those, top opponents. I mean, Columbus Crew on Saturday at home at Snapdragon Stadium, a 7:30 kickoff. They're 2-0-1. They're third in the Eastern Division in MLS. That's going to be a tough game for them. And when you play this style, this aggressive style of play, you get some leaks, right? You're bringing your safeties up a little bit too far. You can get burned on a bomb. And they got burned once, and they got burned a couple of times where Real Salt Lake either missed the shot or Dos Santos made a great save. They were able to do this without Chucky Lozano. Chucky Lozano was out with a left hamstring injury, and we don't even know what the updates are on him. Overall stats, San Diego had the possession for 52.5% of the time. They outshot Real Salt Lake 8-6 on shots on goal, 15-13 on shot attempts. Yellow cards were 3-1 in favor of Real Salt Lake. Corner kicks, San Diego got 2 extras, 6-4, and then both goalkeepers had 5 saves each. Negri scored the first goal for San Diego FC in the 43rd minute. Andres Dreyer in the first minute of extra time, set up by Willie Camato of San Diego FC, and then Marcus Ingvarsson in the 6th minute of extra time was able to put the third goal in. A 3-1 victory. You win on the road in soccer and you get 3 points. That's huge. And now San Diego FC has done it twice. They'll be back in action on Saturday night against the Columbus Crew right here at Snapdragon Stadium. Should be a fun time to go check out. MLS. Yes, stoppage time. I keep saying extra time. Extra time is like overtime. Stoppage time is all the time that was stopped in play that you get extra at the end of the game. Stoppage time. The first minute of stoppage time was Dreyer. In the 6th minute of stoppage time, it was Ingvarsson. But I love that attack. I love that. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We're going to talk about San Diego State and UCSD. Is it win their tournament or bust? I think it is for one of the schools. I don't think it is for the other school. I'll tell you about that and the 3 schools that you should be worried about if you're an Aztec fan that aren't in the Mountain West. We'll talk about that when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 12:35 Monday of the week. Beautiful Monday outside. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3. The Fan. Enjoy today's weather while you can. It's supposed to rain all day tomorrow, and it's supposed to rain a little bit on Wednesday, and it's supposed to rain on Thursday, and it's supposed to rain on Friday. Need the rain. Any place that gets snow, you should be getting a lot of snow coming up. Want to get back to your phone calls, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Got 3 on hold. Let's get out to San Diego. Bano wants to talk about Aztec basketball. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, Braden? Congrats on the new show, man.
I appreciate it, dude. Thank you.
Wanted to talk about our guard play with San Diego State. I do like Miles Bird. I don't want to be too harsh on the kid, but his shot selection late in Las Vegas, just chunking threes, kind of lazy. Maybe he was a little tired from the trip from Wyoming. But I kind of don't think he's pro ready. I would like him to come back next year and not go to the draft. But what do you think, man? Do you think he has what it takes to become a professional next year, or is that just being ambitious in his kind of point of view?
I think he's a little ambitious. I also think he wants to just kind of test the waters a little bit and see where he's at. I think he comes back. I think a big step. It's not a telling step, but he didn't do the senior day stuff. Usually guys that are going to leave and end up doing that. He didn't do that. I think San Diego State, it sounds like, have him taken care of if he comes back. So I don't think he's ready for the pros yet. I think he is a good guard, but as you mentioned, shot selection late in games, which has been a problem for the Aztecs forever. But I think he does come back, and I think this team's got a really good opportunity at being super legit even next year if they can bring back a lot of these guys, including Miles Bird. I would imagine, here's how I think this is going to play out. I think Miles Bird's going to go out and do some combine stuff. He's going to do some workouts. I think he's going to realize that he's not going to be a first-round draft pick, and then he's just going to come back to San Diego State. I don't think there's a lot for him in terms of what games he's got left to really show that he is a first-round pick or something like life-changing pick. So I would imagine he probably comes back.
Nice, man. Yeah, well, I hope he can maybe get the feedback he's looking for from the pro scouts and maybe work on his game a little bit more. Definitely needs to put on weight. I hope we can make the tournament and kind of win our conference tournament. And I wanted to give a shout out to my boy. He's actually a coach for UCSD. To my boy, Coach Steve Aldridge. He's one of the assistant coaches. So they're doing great this year. I hope both San Diego teams make it. That'd be great. What are your thoughts on the UCSD right now?
Well, UCSD, and Ben, I appreciate the phone call, man. I gotta try to move on to some more, and it's a good basketball talk. The thing with UCSD, you look at their overall profile, it just doesn't stack up against a lot of other teams that they would potentially battle with bubble-wise, but they've had a great year, and they're 2 wins away from making the NCAA tournament. I think that's how they got to view this week in Vegas, or should I say Henderson, which is basically Vegas. They got to go win 2 games. They got to win their first-round game, and they got to beat Irvine in the championship, and they're going to be in. And if they don't do those things, if they make the championship, I think they got a shot. But you start looking at their overall metrics, they're 35 in the net, 39 in RPI. Their non-conference RPI, 74. And you start to look at their strength of schedule, their non-conference strength of schedule. Their strength of schedule is 180 out of like 300 teams, 360-something teams, or whatever it is. Their non-conference strength of schedule is 261. They're competing against San Diego State for a bid, who already beat them, obviously, if they don't win their tournament. And their non-conference strength of schedule is an 8. And then the other teams that are bubble teams, and I'm going to talk about these teams just a little bit. A team it's got to win over the 12th, 21st, and 27th best team, even though their strength of schedule is not great. It's good in their conference. And then another team that has wins over 13 in the net, 23 in the net, 27 in the net. And then another team that doesn't necessarily have some of the best wins, but they've played the third best non-conference schedule in college basketball. And they got wins over the net 24 team and the net 49 team. The best win for UCSD is Utah State, who is a net ranking of 37. Their second best win is UC Irvine. They split with them and they're the 62nd best team in the country according to the net. So you look at the metrics. I mean, UCSD it's not enough, I don't think, to sneak into the tournament. I think they've had a great season though. But to me, if I'm a UCSD Triton fan, we got to go win 2 in Henderson if you want to feel comfortable on Sunday. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get to Chad in Little Italy. Chad, what's going on?
Braden, how are you, my man?
I'm
it is
doing
so
well.
nice to hear a local on the radio. I mean, I'm third generation San Diegan, and we're few and far between, my friend. So I love your take. I'm glad you're in this spot, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Chad. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Hey, I've got to ask, man, because this is something I still struggle with to this day, and I don't know if I've ever heard you talk about it, but when I hear about these NFL deals, man, I mean, I was diehard San Diego Charger fan. I don't know about you. I'm assuming you were.
I was.
But
That was my number one
how
team
did
for all sports.
and same here. How did you overcome that and process that? Because I'm still going through it, bro. I'm not gonna lie. When I hear about these big deals and everything going on, I go, damn, I missed I missed B3 and at the Q. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that happens. And I just want to know, are you still feeling it, or have you processed completely?
I processed that all out. And the thing for me, Chad, and I appreciate the phone call. You know, for me, I'm very much and people in the chat hate this. I don't mind saying it. I do gatekeep when it comes to fandom on rules of who you could be a fan of. I'm not a big believer in the whole like, oh, well, I like their whatever, so I root for them, you know. And I think Elo's rooted for the Dolphins long enough, so I'm not like taking a shot at him at all. But, you know, for me, I represent the teams that represent me. And what represents me is my city. My city is San Diego, and it's always been San Diego. And as long as wherever I may end up, San Diego is always going to be my home. And I would consider San Diego my home. I would consider Fort Worth, Texas, a part of my, home, right? And just places I've lived, I think, for a small amount of time. Tucson, has a special place in my heart, and a couple other places that, that my family has lived in, I can add to the list. And so for me, when I root for a sports, like I root for San Diego on the chest and not the name Padres or Chargers or Goals or whatever. Like I root for all those teams, right, when they were in San Diego. But for me, it was always San Diego. So once you take the team out of San Diego, I don't care anymore. I don't care. It's not, I have no connection or relatability with that team. I just don't. And I can't get excited. Like if they win, I don't care. Like the whole thing for me was, if they won a Super Bowl, that's everybody's goal, right? So that you're a fan, like Adam's a fan of the Falcons. If they win the Super Bowl, Adam's going berserk. Like the greatest day ever, right? If the team you root for wins the ultimate goal that they have of winning a Super Bowl or World Series, and your reaction is not, I'm super excited, it's over, dude. They're like, why are you rooting for that team? And I came to that conclusion. I said, well, what happens if they actually, because there was a couple of times where I'd like watch them play, yada, 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 and be like, oh, well, Phillips there and all that other stuff. And I would be like, okay, maybe. Like I was on the fence a little bit in those first couple of years. And then I said, if they win the Super Bowl, am I happy or am I upset? And the answer was, I would have been pissed off. So why would I root for something that eventually is going to piss me off? Because at the end of the day, San Diego's not, like, none of us are winning a championship. We're not on the team. I think we need to understand that. But where you have that connection is the city wins the championship, right? Because San Diego Padres won a World Series. Like, it's great for San Diego. If the Chargers win the Super Bowl, Even though most of their fans are still in San Diego. Is it great for San Diego, or does LA get another championship? LA gets another championship. And I hate Los Angeles. Growing up here. Don't like the Dodgers, don't care about the Lakers, Clippers, whatever. I go as far as Anaheim, and that's about it in terms of fan appreciation. So for me, the first thing that took them off my list was they don't represent San Diego anymore. I don't really care. If they win a Super Bowl, I wouldn't be happy about it. So why would I root for a team that's only going to make me upset? That doesn't make any sense. And I think for me, is I found a different void to fill that hole in my heart, if you will. Like fantasy football, like the NFL to me is mostly fantasy football. I've jumped on the Cowboys bandwagon, if you will, because I lived out there, but it's really the same reaction. If the Cowboys win on a Sunday, I don't have that same excitement that I had when the San Diego Chargers would win. And when they lose, I definitely do not feel anything like I did when the San Diego Chargers lost. I don't. But my void that it filled for me was TCU football. And the connection I have with TCU football is obviously I went there, but I also worked for the football team. There's just a different, I've invested a lot of time, effort, and money into their thing. I have made college football my new NFL. And I have made college football and TCU football my new San Diego Chargers. And that's the closest thing I have had to getting that San Diego Charger feel. So it was them leaving and not representing who I was anymore, which is San Diego. It was, if they won a Super Bowl, would I be happy? And the answer was no. And it was filling the void with something else. And that's what happened. And now when they're on, I don't even care. I don't know anybody on that team. There's now nobody on that team that played here. They've been far and gone along for so long that it doesn't even matter. And I don't even like Jim Harbaugh, though. But like the guy in the chat likes, Jim Harbaugh. He's a Michigan guy. They have a ton of TCU players. I hope the TCU players do well. But I don't really want the Chargers to win. But at the same time, I'm not rooting against them. They're just like watching any other team. Chargers Raiders to me was like a huge deal, like back in the day. Now it's like watching the Vikings play the Packers. Just two rivals playing each other. I'm more focused on fantasy football. And the other thing for me, I think it's different. Working in this business, you lose some of your fandom because you have to view things in a more of a kind of neutral perspective. I think that takes a little bit away, which makes it easier. And then in the fall with coaching high school football, my weekend is spent doing high school football things. Friday we're playing, Saturday we have films, Sunday we're doing prep. And then doing play-by-play at USD, I just have so much going on that it's not like really part of my life anymore. And then from there, that's how I overcame that. It's just kind of, it's almost like a breakup, right? You fill voids with other things. Either get a new significant other or whatever, or you work on different things, or you keep yourself entertained. It's the same thing with that void. So for me, that's how I overcame it. I do like, throwing shade their way when they do dumb things. I don't understand the fans down here that want everybody to they get upset when people are mad at that team. It's like, look, dude, you root for a team that doesn't have a lot of fans. You root for a team that not a lot of people like down here. It is what it is. And you're not going to convince those people to ever go back unless the team comes back. And that's the thing with me. I'm not anti-NFL. I love the NFL. I think it's fun. But for me, and it doesn't really matter, I don't even care if they move back. No, I do. I want them to move back. But if they move back, I'd be in. If any team moved here, I'd be in. Just like I am with San Diego FC, just like I am with the Padres, just like I am with any of the teams here in San Diego. They represent my home, and that's why I'm a fan. So kind of a long-winded answer on that, but that's how I get there. I don't Sundays to me and all this stuff, I don't care what the Chargers do. It doesn't affect me anymore. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's head down to Chula Vista. Kevin's been waiting on hold for a while. Kevin, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Well, I'll join the chorus of thank yous and congratulations. Thanks to Adam for being wise enough to put you in the slot. Thanks to the corporates for making the decision as well, because, it all takes money. and hopefully it'll be a long-lived association there, Braden. So good for you. And, you've got a lot of us out here. We always have your back, and thanks for allowing us again to have a voice, which is not the in thing now. I know in sports talk radio, so many of the shows tend to shut out the very people who make sports possible. So I appreciate your genuine interest in the rest of us. That's, I think, very important, and it will also give you much long success, because these sports talk shows, you guys are on for a long time every day. And at some point, throughout, no matter what your best efforts are, you end up having to repeat yourself over and over again, trying to fill airtime. It's good to hear some of the perspectives out there that the fans have to offer, and I've heard a lot of good stuff today. I hope Clay down in Chula Vista, my neighbor, is listening and will call back in and talk about his beloved Cleveland Browns and try to figure out that mess. That's always a good topic as well. So I don't know what the Padres are going to do this year, honestly. And I hope for the best. And, with Garrett Cole going down in New York, I hope that Brian Cashman has lost AJ's cell phone number. And I don't want Brian calling up AJ saying, hey, let's make a deal at this time. I'd like to see the Padres stay with what they have. Let's let it roll. And I do think that knowing AJ's track record, this lineup is not yet set. There could very well be something else in the pipeline. You never know, that will come to fruition later as we get into the season. You just don't know with the way AJ operates. But
Kevin, I appreciate the phone call. We're getting up close to time here, and that's the best part about sports, man. It's a community effort, and I love this community, and I love the city of San Diego. It's why I'm involved in so many different aspects in San Diego. Coaching high school football is a great joy of mine. Working at USD is an absolute joy. And being able to hang out with a lot of people and a lot of different aspects of life in San Diego is great. I love talking about sports with everybody as well. So I appreciate the phone call. Appreciate all the nice words. We're going to continue some phone calls in the next hour, talking Padres baseball. Kevin brought up a good point with the Brian Cashman thing. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow. There was an article by Ken Rosenthal about, with all these injuries and pitching and everything like that, that there might be some new interest in some of the pieces that the Padres have. The Padres right now, I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot make a deal and send anybody else off. Not before the season starts. I mean, if the Marlins aren't going to do it with Sandy, you cannot do it with Cease or Michael King right now. We're 2.5 weeks out. Let's just kind of see where this starting rotation goes, unless you get a piece back. But if you're going to trade one of these guys, you're not getting back another starting pitcher. There's too many teams that need him again. So for me, I'm not answering. Well, AJ's going to answer the phone. AJ will listen to any deal. That's why he makes all these great deals all the time. But if you get a phone call from New York, we'll let that thing ring a little bit. You could tell me on the voicemail what you propose. Not sending off Cease, and I'm not sending off King. Not until at least the season starts. Now, you want to trade this guy at the deadline? Sure, why not? See how it goes off. But right now, you cannot make a deal. Let's make a deal. No, we ain't playing that way, Brady. No, we're not. We're not playing let's make a deal. Not today. I like the way things are as they fit in right now, and not have to worry about what the Yankees are doing. They had an out. Yankees had an out. Garrett Cole opted out of his deal, and they let him back in. They could have just let him walk, and they didn't. Play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Talking more Padres when we come back. Young or vet What do you think? 833-288-0973. 973. Final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show. It's time for our biggest fan giveaway. Congratulations to today's biggest fan, Guillermo Hoffman from San Diego. Give us a call back within the next 10 minutes at 833-288-0973, and you'll qualify for our grand prize, 20 tickets for you and your friends for a night in our Odyssey Suite at the Padres game later this season. Remember to register your name at 97.3, thefansd.com/biggest fan. Guillermo Hoffman from San Diego, you're today's biggest fan. Give us a call back within the next 10 minutes. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. The NFL news today has been insane. Sam Darnold agreed to a 3-year deal with Seattle. Justin Fields is now the quarterback in New York for the Jets. There's been some trades. There's been some other signings. Laramie Tunsil reportedly getting traded from the Texans to Washington as the Commanders try to beef up their offensive line for their young quarterback. Got a lot. Josh Sweat now goes to Arizona on a deal. Linebacker for Philly, another defensive player off of the Eagles. Got a flurry of moves today in the National Football League. I do want to mention this hour on 97 Through the Fan is brought to you by Frozen Ropes San Diego. Hey, parents, here's a message from Coach Kurt at Frozen Ropes. Is your child 6 to 12 years old? Their baseball summer league is the perfect fit for your player starting June 16th through August 17th. Summer league includes 8 practices, 8 games. Register by March 31st and save $100. Go to SanDiegoFrozenRopes.com. Want to get back to your phone calls, talking Padres baseball again. Just announced our biggest fan, Guillermo Hoffman, is today's biggest fan. Padres just started. Now, I was talking to Adam Kluge. We're now on the same time as Arizona because they don't move. Arizona doesn't move for time change. They just stay the same the whole time, which living in Arizona for a semester was wild when that was the case. Don't move your clock back. Sometimes you're on the same time as Pacific time. Sometimes you're not. So the Padres game is about to get underway at 1:10 in Peoria. Michael King starting for the Padres. He is going against Friedel of Cincinnati. We'll see how King does. We'll try to get you updates throughout the game. There'll only be a couple of innings that we get in this final hour. I will say the Padres did make some more roster moves in terms of who's still in camp and who's not. Today, the Padres, about 9 minutes ago, we have reassigned Trenton Brooks, Mike Brossow, Clay Dungan to minor league camp today. There are now 49 players remaining in major league camp. So you could take Brossow off that list that we had earlier, which I didn't think he was probably going to make the team anyway. It does have options. So he gets sent down to minor league camp, Mike Brossow. So one less player to worry about in that infield group. But I will play, even though Jose Iglesias isn't on he's not on the roster online. I don't know why. He's on that list now. 5 infielders battling for 2 spots, 2 outfielders battling for 1 spot, 3 catchers battling for 1 spot. We're going to talk about bubble watch for the Aztecs and for UCSD in a little bit as well. But I do want to get back to the phones. Let's go up to Oceanside. Juan wants to weigh in on the Braden Surprenant Show. Juan, what's going on?
How's it going, Braden? Congrats on the new show. I've been a fan of your Sunday show for a while, so it's pretty exciting to hear from you every day now.
Well, I appreciate that, Juan. Thank you.
I kind of wanted to play the overreaction game with Robert Suarez because I feel like last season he kind of started to falter toward the end, and his couple outings in spring training haven't been great. I kind of feel like in my overreaction, I feel like he should probably just be traded. And if Iggy Rosario doesn't get a chance, he should also just be traded too, so that he has an opportunity somewhere else. Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on something kind of resembling a trade of Robert Suarez attached with maybe a player like Iggy or Tirso, a player who's kind of running out of options with the franchise.
Well, I will say this, Juan, and I appreciate the phone call. Thank you very much. When it comes to any player that's out of options that is a good enough player to make a major league roster that's not going to make your particular team is usually thrown out there in trades to try to get something for them before you end up just letting them go for nothing. So by that kind of standard, I could see that being the case. Now, if a lot of teams think that your particular player, Eggy, is not going to make the team and they know he's not going to make the team, then they're a little bit less inclined to make a trade when they can wait until you DFA him or anything like that. And then sometimes on the waivers, you have to make a trade in order to bring him over and that sort of thing. But that being said, the Robert Suarez thing, I still think he might be traded at some point. I don't think trading him in the spring is worth anything at this point in time, because what you really need is starting pitching. I think they got enough bats with what they have. I mean, you can never have too many bats, just as like you can never have too many arms. But I do think if you're going to trade I think if you're going to trade Robert Suarez, you would have done it right before camp started, or you're going to do it, maybe in the middle of the season. And I think they have an opportunity to fill that role with Jason Adams. So I could see that. The problem is there's a lot of starting pitching going down. So the cost for starting pitching out there is going to be very high. And teams that have starting pitching to go to disperse are usually not teams that don't have a closer, or usually teams that don't need a closer. So you're going to get, if you're going to get somebody, you're going to get somebody at the deadline that with in which you could trade Suarez to a contender later on. But I would agree. I mean, he's gonna opt out of his deal at the end of the year anyway, and you might as well get something for him. But for me, with the trades, I don't think the Padres, I mean, they might add one more right before the start of the season because we've seen AJ do that a lot. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think they're going to. I don't necessarily think they're going to trade away any of their major league players unless they don't think they're going to make the team. But you never know what AJ Preller's got up his sleeve. Appreciate the phone call by one. Let's get out to Chris in San Diego. Chris, you're on the Braden Surprenant Show. What's up?
Braden, what's going on? Good job on getting the new gig. Congrats.
I appreciate that.
Don.
Thank you.
Hey, so I like to take on the Chargers. I was a person that went to a ton of road games every year, big time Charger fan. But nowadays, I'm completely indifferent. The only thing that gets under my skin is when fans from other markets say it's a reflection on San Diego as a sports town, and yeah, I think that's completely false. Because I mean, if you just look at Aztec basketball, now the San Diego FC, what the Padres have been doing, we have an amazing fan base. So keep talking San Diego sports. We need people carrying the torch here that are big believers in this market. And for those people that do like Aztec basketball, the one thing I do want to say is that it's probably the one sport nowadays that you as a fan can actually contribute to the success. So if people are fans of Aztec basketball, please support our NIL program, because we want to hold on to the players as much as possible. And I'll just leave it at that.
How about Blenders, the big check on Saturday, huh?
Yep. And we actually went to the event that they had for the Mesa Foundation yesterday. So, for the people that do support it, there's a ton of things that you can do in the market that's really fun and engaging with the team too. So just I'll leave it at that, and I'll let you continue.
I appreciate that, Chris. Thanks again for the phone call. I hate that the NFL has this notion of, well, it's the fans, it's a reflection of the fans not going to games and everything like that, because they want to save their own ass with, the dude in charge of the Chargers. But at the same time, I mean, I think San Diego has showed out. And I've had this conversation, I've brought this on air multiple times. I mean, and every time, and there's people, I've heard it on other shows here, and I disagree with them on the sense of, well, we had two NBA teams here and they left and we couldn't support the NBA. It's a different town now. Ask anybody that's been here for a long period of time. And I mean longer than I have. I'm 29. I turned 30 in a couple of weeks, in 10 days. So I got 10 days left of being in my 20s. But this is not a small military town anymore. It's just not. And when the Rockets and the Clippers were here, it was a small military town. It's a small Navy town. I mean, the way the city has grown just in the last 10 years, even downtown, has been insane. I mean, just look at the skyline. Go find pictures, and all of you have them. Go find pictures of the San Diego skyline just 10 years ago. But even then, like if you look at, you could go, these video games are insane. You know, like MLB The Show and everything like that, where you could go back to and you see the development around Petco Park has been insane. All of the just areas around San Diego, it's just grown up so much. I mean, we are a top 8 city population-wise in the United States. Market and city is a little bit different. But that being said, just because they couldn't support the Rockets and the Clippers way back in the day doesn't mean they can't support, or we can't support, multiple sports teams. I mean, we have so many people from all walks of life, all cities in America that have moved here, that have their own fandom from other teams that will jump in. It's unfortunate that, you know, LA is just such a huge market that kind of shrinks us a little bit in the corner. But I know San Diego could support any professional franchise at the major league level. They've done it with Aztec basketball. They've done it. I mean, MLS, it's only been one game at home for MLS, but MLS has looked great. They've even done it with the Wave. And the support that the Wave has gotten. I mean, I don't even need to mention the Padres. You guys all know that, with how packed Padre games are. I mean, when I was growing up, there were times when I was working here at the station pre-COVID, covering games, going, I wonder what this place would look like if it's packed. And all you have to do for these, just effort. Just put in effort in the team. And the Padres did that, and Padres fans showed out. And San Diego FC has put in effort, and their fans have shown out. Aztec basketball, same thing. If you put in effort, San Diegans will show up and rally and support you. And I've seen it. So as Chris said, you can support the Aztec, you know, the Mesa Foundation. You can support, if you're a USD fan, the Olay Foundation. I don't know what UCSD's is, but every school in town will get 3 D1 schools in town. 2 of them have a chance to make the NCAA tournament. Those 2 schools are going to have to deal with these 3 schools out of conference this week, not even playing them head-to-head if they want to make the NCAA tournament. How do they stack up against these 3 teams? I'll tell you when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, middays from 10 to 2, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show. Live and local every day from 10 to 2. San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Make sure to hit, as Eric's saying in the chat, make sure you hit the like button. Like button. Hit the like button. It helps us with our algorithm. Like button on YouTube. For all of you guys in the YouTube. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and like. Hit the like button. Does a great job for us. We really appreciate it. Thanks again to everybody weighing in on the chat. And again, taking your phone calls today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Talking Padres baseball. We're talking Aztec basketball. We talked a little bit San Diego FC. It was a huge win for them against Real Salt Lake over the weekend. I love what Mike Ibarra said after the game about going. We wanted to go after this game, and they got the equalizer in the 91st minute, and they got the equalizer in the 43rd minute, and then they got the go ahead in the 91st minute in stoppage time. And then they weren't satisfied; they wanted more, and then they scored again. Junior, I like to poke the like button instead. That's fine too. Poke the like button. It's all the same. I'll like it. Thanks again to all of you guys in the YouTube chat. You can follow me on social media at @B_SURP. Follow me on all socials, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll have content on all of those pages. And be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast page. Appreciate it. Update on the Padres game. Not great. It's not great, Bob. Reds up 3-0 on the Padres. They scored 3 runs on 2 hits. Michael King, 1 inning, 3 earned runs, 2 hits, 1 walk. Gave up a home run to start the game. So not necessarily the greatest of starts, but again, spring training, as we mentioned before, can't look too far in the results. It's about the process. And if they're going through the process right, and we'll hear what Mike Schilt has to say after the game, see and hear what Michael King feels after the outing. We'll see what he does in inning number 2 if they let him go out there for a second inning. But the home run hit by Candelario I think it was Ellie De La Cruz. No, Candelario hit a home run with 2 outs and 1 on. So a 2-run homer for Candelario in that inning. He also surrendered hits to Ellie De La Cruz, or hit to Ellie De La Cruz. And the 3 runs that scored were Friedel, who walked. De La Cruz scored on the home run by Candelario, and it's a 3-0 lead for Cincinnati. So we're talking about Aztec basketball and UCSD basketball. If they win their tournaments, they're in this week. But if they don't, they're going to have to compete with a couple of teams here. And just to go through the profile on the bubble watch for the Aztecs and UCSD, I think UCSD has to win the Big West tournament if they want to be in the NCAA tournament. They're not going to play enough good teams to give them a boost. And that was a big reason why the West Coast Conference back in the day made their bracket like they do. And if anybody doesn't know what the bracket looks like, it's just a bunch of buys. So the number 1 and number 2 seed in the Big West and in the West Coast Conference are already in the semifinals. The 3 and the 4 are already in the quarterfinals. The 5 and 6 await 7 to play 10 and 8 to play 9. And then you go through. So 7, 8, 9, and 10 in a 10-team conference has to play, 4 or 5 games to win the conference tournament. And then the top teams need to win 2 games. So not only is it a rest thing, but on top of that, the reason why they did it back in the day, West Coast Conference, kind of the leader in this, is Gonzaga was tired of playing all these teams for a third time that would ruin their metrics because they're just not very good. So Gonzaga would get the 1 seed, they'd play the 8th in conference, and the 8th best team in the West Coast Conference would be like a 200 in the net, even though they didn't have net back then. And so they'd get dinged just for playing the game. And it got to a point where they even changed the scheduling for the West Coast Conference, where Gonzaga was guaranteed over a 5-year period, they would have a guarantee that they would not travel to the worst team in conference because it would hurt them in the metrics. So a lot of these conferences have put those tournaments in. And for the Big West, aside from Irvine playing UCSD, that's the only type of good win that either of those schools are going to get. And UCSD beating Irvine a second time, 2 out of 3, is not going to be, I don't think, enough for them to get into the tournament on their own as an at-large without a lot of teams in front of them losing or teams in the bubble losing in the first round of their respective tournaments. As for San Diego State, I do think they can get in because of the way that they put their schedule together. They have the 8th best non-conference schedule, strength of schedule in college basketball. And the thing with the non-conference schedule, and I'm pretty sure that the committee agrees, at least they do with a lot of different sports when they put this together. And again, NCAA tournament is run by the NCAA. It's unlike the college football playoff, which is run by a separate entity. They really value the non-conference strength of schedule because the non-conference strength of schedule is what you can control. You can't control your conference schedule. You have to play the teams in your conference. You can't control them being good or not. You can control your non-conference schedule, which means you can go sign up to play a bunch of good teams. Aztecs' non-conference strength of schedule is 8. Their regular strength of schedule is 52. You look at their best wins. They beat the 3rd best team in the RPI, in the net in Houston. 35 on the list in UCSD. Creighton's 38. New Mexico 41. They beat Boise State twice. Their notable losses are Gonzaga, Oregon, and Utah State, all top 40 in the RPI. Unfortunately for them, their worst loss is UNLV. They got swept by the Rebs in the 2 games, and they're 95 in the net. But overall, that's a pretty good profile. As for UCSD, their best wins, Utah State, top 40 in the net, but they're at 37, and Irvine's top 70. They're at 62. And their worst loss, they have 2 of them over 100, and that's Seattle, which was a bad loss early in the year, and that's UC Riverside. In terms of the bracketology, according to Joe Lenardi right now, he's got Baylor, Utah State, Arkansas, and Indiana as the last 4 buys. Last 4 in, which means you got to go to Dayton, Ohio, San Diego State, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Xavier. And then the first 4 out, Boise State, North Carolina, Texas, Colorado State, followed by Nebraska, Wake Forest, Cincinnati, and Dayton. So if you're the Aztecs and UCSD, those teams I mentioned, you're rooting for already to lose as early as possible. For San Diego State, I picked 3 schools that they have to worry about the most. There's a team that has a first round that has one of the last 4 buys in Arkansas. There's a team that has is part of the first 4 or last 4 in with San Diego State and Oklahoma. And then there's a team that they have to worry about in the first 4 out in North Carolina. Boise State and Colorado State, they play potentially in the Mountain West tournament. So you don't have to worry about them. If San Diego State takes care of business against Boise State, then they don't have to worry about anything. If you look at those particular avenues, and I don't think you need to worry about anybody in the next 4 out yet, unless they go in and win their conference. But you start comparing the bubbles teams here, and I look at Arkansas, I look at Oklahoma, and I look at North Carolina. Arkansas with Coach Calipari and being in the SEC is going to get the benefit of the doubt if it's going to come down to them or San Diego State. Same thing with Oklahoma, being in the SEC, and the same thing with North Carolina. Now, the difference is San Diego State actually, in my opinion, has a better resume than some of these schools. You look at Arkansas. Arkansas's non-conference strength of schedule is 279. Their best wins, they actually did beat some teams in the SEC. Their best wins, Kentucky, who's 12 in the net, Missouri, who's 21, and they did beat Michigan, who's 27. Those 3 wins are pretty solid wins, and I think they're very comparable to San Diego State. You know, they have 3 wins in between. Aztecs have a better win in Houston, but those are solid wins. Notable losses, again, everybody in the SEC, basically. They lost 10 conference games. They lost to Auburn. They lost to Florida, Tennessee, Alabama. They're all teams ranked in the top 10 in net. But just because you play all these teams and you lose to them shouldn't give you the advantage if you don't win some of the games. And Arkansas has won some of those games. Hence why they're one of the last 4 teams in. You look at some of their worst losses, losing to South Carolina in 86 is still better than San Diego State, and losing to Oklahoma at a 46 is still better than San Diego State. In terms of Oklahoma, best wins, Arizona, Louisville, and Michigan. They've lost to everybody that's good in the SEC, including teams that aren't like LSU at 85. They didn't have any good wins in the SEC. They're getting the benefit of playing in the SEC with a strength of schedule of 33 and a non-conference schedule of 290, but they didn't beat anybody in the SEC. They won 6 conference games. They're 19-12. They won 6 conference games, and they didn't have a good non-conference strength of schedule. Their best win is against Arizona because they're 13th in the net, but Arizona at the beginning of the year was struggling and is not even close to being the same Arizona team that you have seen the last couple of weeks. So for me, I don't know how Oklahoma is even hanging around right now. They're getting the benefit of the doubt. One more loss for Oklahoma, a first-round loss for Oklahoma, and they're probably out. But that's another team that's getting a lot of love right now for accomplishing not a lot. Yes, they played a very difficult schedule, but if you're not winning any of those games, does it really matter? Same thing can be said about North Carolina. North Carolina is getting the benefit of the doubt of their name. I watched them play Duke over the weekend, and I know Duke is arguably one of the best teams in the country, if not the best, with them and Auburn. I mean, Duke slaughtered North Carolina. North Carolina wasn't even in that game. They lost to Duke twice by double digits both times. Their best wins are UCLA and SMU. Their best wins, the 24th best team and the 49th best team, which is not even close to San Diego State's level. They went 1-11 in quad 1 games. Their strength of schedule is really good at 18 and non-conference strength schedule at 3. But if you don't win any of those games, does it even matter? I don't know if it even matters. So that's why North Carolina is on that first 4 out spot. But those are the 3 schools that I could see them getting the benefit of the doubt over San Diego State. You got Coach Cal at Arkansas, Oklahoma playing the SEC card, and North Carolina because they're North Carolina. I think San Diego State's better than 2 out of those 3 teams just based on their metrics. But with the Aztecs, I think if they beat Boise State later this week, and they got Boise on, I think it's Thursday. Is it Thursday? I think it's Thursday. I think they got Boise State on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday at 2:30. I think you could be comfortable as an Aztec fan on Sunday. I think if they lose to Boise State close, I think they're still probably in, but you're going to have to sweat out Sunday on Selection Sunday. If they go on and beat and make it to the championship, they're probably playing themselves out of a play-in game, which is probably huge for them. I wouldn't view this conference tournament as we got to win to get in. I would view it as we got to get ourselves out of playing a potential game in Dayton, Ohio to start the season or to start the playoff NCAA tournament, especially if you had to go against a team like Ohio State. I mean, that would just be rough. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. When we come back, I'll get you an update on the Padres and how they're doing. It's as they continue their spring training game today, and we'll dive a little bit into the rotation. They got 4 guys now battling for that 5th spot. Who got crossed off the list today? We'll talk about that and who the best option is for opening day when we come back on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 1:37 on a Monday, Braden Surprenant Show. Here with Adam Klug today. Talking Padres baseball, San Diego UFC, college basketball, San Diego State and UCSD. Get back to your phone calls. You want to join the show today, 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. We've got a couple of callers on hold. We're going to get to you as soon as we give you the update on the Padres. 3-0 lead for the Cincinnati Reds over the San Diego Padres. Michael King gave up a 2-run homer to Candelario. Ellie De La Cruz knocked in Friedel before. So that was the 3 runs that he gave up in the first. And then in the second inning, only gave up a hit, but then retired the rest in order. And so now it's a 3-0 lead for Cincinnati as we head to the home half of the second for the Padres with Machado, Cronenworth, and Bogarts due up for San Diego. Arise, Tatis, and Merrill all went down in the bottom half of the first inning with Tatis striking out. That's your update on the San Diego Padres as of right now as they continue spring training action in Peoria against the Cincinnati Reds. Down 3-0 as we start the bottom of the second as they're going against Hunter Green of the Cincinnati Reds. Machado stepping into the box, and we'll get you updates on that. Get back to your phone calls, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Shout out to La Mesa, where Chuck wants to weigh in. Chuck, what's going on?
Hey, Braden, how you doing?
Doing well, man.
I totally agree with your sentiments on the Chargers. I'm a 66-year-old San Diego native, grew up in El Cajon, live in La Mesa, and we've had none but the worst ownerships in the history of the NFL. Gene Klein, trade John Jefferson away. Dean Spanos, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, trades away Junior, everybody, and he's getting sued by his sister for how much? $8 million, is it? I mean,
it's probably more than $8 million.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're out of town. I feel bad for the players. I love the players. I hate the ownership. I'm sorry. We got screwed on that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we had and I appreciate the phone call there, Chuck. We had a phone call earlier from, I think it was Chris, and Chris wanted to weigh in on the Chargers or whatever like that. But, like, how was I able to overcome them leaving town? And it kind of spurred a lot of different phone calls on that. But I found a different void. I mean, I filled the void with something else, with, TCU football. And being involved with TCU football, that was an easy one for me. And treating college football like the National Football League. And, they didn't represent what I supported anymore. And so it was an easy transition for me. It hasn't been for a lot of people. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's go out to La Jolla. Alex wants to talk about college basketball. Alex, what's going on? You're on the Braden Surprenant Show.
Hey, what's up, Braden? I know you gave your thoughts on kind of what the metrics say and all that with SDSU and UCSD. I was just curious as opposed to what you want to see in the NCAA tournament. Do you want to see a mid-major like UCSD go forward, or would you rather see a SEC or a Big Ten team that has maybe 10 or 11 losses in conference, doesn't even make the conference tournament, steal that bid?
I'd rather have UCSD make it. I'd rather have 2 bids from the Big West. I think UCSD has proven that they can win in the NCAA tournament and that they deserve a spot regardless if they beat Irvine in the final or not. And I think the same thing's true about UC Irvine. I think Irvine deserves to be in the NCAA tournament also. But right now, it's just, that's why I grabbed those 3 schools in particular that you got to worry about when you look at the bracketology, because the other mid-major schools, you don't have to worry about those schools because they're trying to find ways to get other Power 4 schools in the conversation. I mean, I look at my own alma mater in TCU. They're not a very good basketball team. They're okay. And they would win a game in conference and all of a sudden would jump to the bubble. And they were not good all year. They finished about 500 in the Big 12. They went 7-4 in the non-con, and every time that they would win a game, like they beat Texas Tech at home, all of a sudden it's like, oh, look, they're part of the bubble again. And that's why I like the expansion of the NCAA tournament. I'm super against, because they're not expanding the NCAA tournament to reward schools like UCSD and UC Irvine. They're doing it to try to get more schools like North Carolina into the NCAA tournament. And these other schools that are in this, bubble in the bracketology, like in Oklahoma or Ohio State or a Texas. I mean, Texas hasn't been that great this year. They got Wake Forest and Nebraska as some teams. Nebraska hasn't been very good in the Big Ten. We don't need the mediocre teams that happen to play tough schedules because they play in tough leagues. To me, you should get the benefit of the strength of schedule if you don't have to be perfect, but you have to win some of those games. I mean, I understand you're playing good teams, man, but you have to win some of those games. So for me, I mean, I'd rather have some mid-majors in there and spread the love a little bit than just put in 14 teams out of the SEC. I mean, I get that they got a lot of good teams in there, but here's my other thing on the whole conference realignment. I mean, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. If you thought that putting them all in one area was going to be great, and therefore they deserve to all make the postseason in any of these sports, I mean, you signed up for this, Oklahoma. You took the $100 million in a TV contract to be part of this conference. You probably could have had a lot better record in a different conference and could have made the NCAA tournament easily. Or same thing in football. I mean, I think Oklahoma's got no shot at winning the SEC in football. Zero. Because they can't hang with some of these. They just don't have enough to hang with the Georgias and the Alabamas and the Tennessees and everything like that. Texas is the richest school in the United States. They didn't need to go to the SEC. They already had the most money. Yet here they are struggling in some other sports. Football's done well. I'll give them that. But they don't. It didn't make any sense for them to do that aside from making more money. And you get what you get what you pay for. You played a stupid game, and now you're reaping now you're getting your stupid prize. So long story short, Alex, no, I'd prefer to see mid majors in the NCAA tournament over mediocre Power 4 schools. Thanks to Alex for the phone call. Appreciate it. Padres rotation. We had an announcement earlier, as Mike Schilt pointed out, and AJ Cassavell tweeted out when it came to the Padres starting rotation. As we have a handful of players going after that final spot. He tweeted out that you can rule Johnny Brito out of the rotation competition, as the Padres are looking at him in more of a length bullpen role. So the race for the 5th spot is down to 4. Randy Vasquez, Kyle Hart, Matt Waldron, and Stephen Kolek. Those are your 4. Battling for one last spot. I think your top of your rotation set. And you're just hoping these guys make it through and not get banged up, especially with the way things are going throughout Major League Baseball. You're going to have Cease, you're going to have King. King has given up 3 runs today, but again, it's spring training. I wouldn't look too far into that. Could be working on a certain pitch. Darvish and Pivetta. I'd take those 4 against almost every rotation in baseball. I think that's a good enough rotation in baseball to go out there and be able to wreak some havoc. That 5th spot, I think it's going to be a revolving door. And here's Mike Schilt talking about that 5th spot in the rotation.
Johnny Brito came to camp. You planning to stretch him out. Where is he at right now? What do you see him competing for at this point?
Yeah, we're trying to, thought process is looking to stretch Johnny out. And I think where we're at now is, more of that role he was in last year at the bullpen, maybe get a few extra innings to go. But no, we're not looking down the starter path at the moment. We're going to go more in the bullpen to, shorter to mid relief.
So that's the weigh in on Johnny Brito. Now you can X him off the list. He was part of that conversation as of last night, at least for most people. Now the 4 guys that you have left, Hart, Vasquez, Waldron, and Kolek. All of those players have options. Some of them down to 1 now. And all 4 of those players are relatively young. Now, Kyle Hart is 32 years old. Randy Vasquez is 26. Matt Waldron's 28. Stephen Kolek is 27. As I piece this together with the rotation, I mean, Kolek's looked the best so far. And the fact that all of these guys have options, I think, leads to a potential revolving door for that fifth spot and kind of going a little bit at a time. I don't think any of these players should start the season in the bullpen. Because every time you talk about starting pitching, you need a lot of it. And you need a lot of guys to be able to go out there and give you innings and give you starts. And that's all of these guys are going to be making a start for the Padres at some point during the season. And as of right now, I would not be surprised, and I think it's probably going to be the case. I think Stephen Kolek is probably going to be that fifth guy the first time through, maybe the first couple times through. He's looked the best. He's about to turn 28. He's got 3 options. You know, Fangraphs projects him to have a 4.22 ERA in the big leagues, but in only about 57 innings pitched with 21 walks and 46 strikeouts. That's the season preview for Stephen Kolek. I think he's pitching his way onto this team. Matt Waldron is slowly starting to pitch his way off this team. But that doesn't mean I don't think Matt Waldron can help you. I think Matt Waldron can come up and be able to give you a couple of games as a starter. But that doesn't mean he should be in the bullpen. I think it would, really negate him and his ability to grow a little bit even more as a starting pitcher. The thing with Waldron is Waldron, he lives and dies by the knuckleball. And if the knuckleball ain't working, it ain't working, dog. And that's a bad outing out of Matt Waldron on nights that he can't get the knuckleball to work. On days he can't get it to work, he's almost at a Cy Young level. But he needs to be getting innings in the minor leagues. Randy Vasquez needs to be getting innings in the minor leagues. And I think this competition is going to continue. I don't think this is going to be a situation where your first time through the rotation, this player is part of the set conclusion in number 5. I just don't see it happening. But that being said, I think all of these guys are going to make their Padre debut as a starter at some point during the season. Whether it be Kyle Hart, Randy Vasquez, Matt Waldron, or Stephen Kolek. We do have some news out of the Padre game. Now, here's how we're going to set this up. We talked about what Mike Schilt valued in a catcher. And Mike Schilt said it's a defensive position first, offensive position second. And they really liked the strides that Elias Diaz had put together behind the dish for the Padres. Calling games and working with pitching staffs. We know what you're going to get out of his offense. And if he could bat in the 9 spot and just manage a pitching staff, be on the same page with Mike Schilt, he's going to be in a good spot. That's why I think he's going to be the starter and why it kind of alluded to what the backup might be and what the type of player they might keep on the team. But did you know that Elias Diaz can throw people out? He went out there today in the spring training game and he casually throws out Ellie De La Cruz trying to swipe second in the top half of the third. This is a pretty good play. I mean, he throws it out for one leg. He gets Ellie by 3 steps. I mean, it's not even close. Strike him out, throw him out for the Padres in the top half of the third. Elias Diaz. What a great job. That was a pretty good play right there. As he wipes him off the board. Other updates from Peoria. So the Reds have hit Michael King a little bit. He's gone a couple innings now. He's gone 2 2/3. He gave up 3 runs on 3 hits, 3 walks, a strikeout, and give up that home run to Candelario. Most of that damage came in the first inning. So he really settled in after that. Blanchard came in to finish off the third after the strike him out, throw him out. San Diego Padres offensively had been no hit until Xander Bogaerts got a knock. He's now hitting 267. I think Padres could really use a good year out of Xander. I'm already starting to see the hatred for Xander in the chats and on social media. The guy's locked in on your team, man. He ain't going away. You might as well just root for the best and hope that he does well instead of praying that they're going to trade him away and eat a bunch of money. 267 now. He's 1 for 1 today. I think he's going to have a big year. And I think Manny Machado said that in one of his interviews. He's got the lone hit today for the Padres. They're 1 for 7 as a team. They've struck out twice. Machado struck out against Green. Tatis struck out against Green. But today's lineup for the Padres, Arraez, Tatis Jr., Merrill, Machado, Cronenworth, Bogaerts, Hayward, Sheets, Diaz. I mean, that's pretty much as close as you're going to get to an opening day lineup as you'll see. I'm curious about Merrill being in the 3 spot. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. Little Padres lineup conversation. I like Tatis in the leadoff spot more than I like Arraez. I'll pitch my case tomorrow. It's been a fun first show. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow from 10 to 2. The Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, middays. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. See ya.